Chapter 721. The 100 Miles Godly Fist used bravery as its bones and strength as its flesh. It was brave and unyielding when fighting with others, fearless. In the past, when Fang Yan and Bai Lilu fought, they were fighting to the death. It looked like they were fighting with their lives on the line. Neither of them would hold back. Fang Yan never thought that Bai Lilu would learn the star-shattering fist after not seeing him for a while. Fang Yan never thought that Bai Lilu would learn to hide his strength during the fight. Was this the Bai Lilu he knew? Was this the Bai Lilu family's man? Pfft. Fang Yan despised him in his heart. Bai Lilu's punch was unstoppable. Before the punch arrived, the chi came first. Fang Yan's body bent and flew backward, as if he had been struck by a powerful force and collided with a powerful force. Bai Lilu's body was still in the charging position. His body was still flying in the air, and his fist was still in the forward position. On the surface, it seemed that Bai Lilu had a big advantage. Fang Yan was sent flying by his punch. But Bai Lilu knew that this guy was using Tai Chi's drunken crane riding the wind to reduce his strength. When he punched, it was like hitting a pile of cotton wool. The more strength he exerted, the faster the cotton wadding retreated. But, could a stone hurt the cotton wool? That was obviously impossible. Drunken crane riding the wind, what a hateful movement. Bai Lilu thought angrily. He thought of the Fang family's genius martial artist, Enchanting. When he was at his peak, his tendons were cut off by the dragon god and he fell to rock bottom. He lived on wine and sleep every day. But at that time, he created this desireless movement technique, drunken crane riding the wind. Everyone knew that he went to the cold land to look for the ice dragon's bloodline. Many people were suspicious and sympathetic of this behavior. Ice dragon? That was a legendary monster. How was it possible to find it? They knew that Enchanting might never come back. A prodigy of a generation had fallen from grace just like that. People couldn't help but sigh in regret. When Enchanting was at his peak, Bai Lilu's target had always been him. He had thought that one day, he would be able to fight against such a master. But now, it seemed that he would never have the chance again. Logically speaking, Bai Lilu's punch, which had been accumulating power for a long time, should have missed, because he didn't even touch Fang Yan's body. However, he did not give up. He did not even change his move. His body flew even faster, drenched in the torrential rain and facing the cold wind. His entire palm had turned green. Although the green color was faint, it proved that he had comprehended the star-shattering fist for some time. Fang Yan retreated and rushed forward. When the force of the leap was exhausted, Fang Yan's body began to fall, and so did Bai Lilu's body. As soon as Fang Yan's toes touched the ground, Bai Lilu charged towards Fang Yan's face in a condescending manner. *Pa. The fist incinerated the rainwater and smashed towards Fang Yan's head. Fang Yan's feet were like a pair of ice skates gliding on the water, and Bai Lilu's body was also chasing after him. The whistling of the wind, the pitter-patter of the rainwater, and the heavy breathing of people mingled together. Fang Yan retreated with drunken crane riding the wind in order to reduce the force of Bai Lilu's punch. Now, Fang Yan realized that this idea was too idealistic. Bai Lilu's star-shattering fist was ready but not released. Until now, the majestic force was still gathered on his fist and arm. In other words, if Fang Yan did not fight with him, his punch would always be a huge threat to Fang Yan. Fang Yan raised his hands and used the hand supporting the sky move. Bai Lilu threw out a punch and smashed it towards his palm. Bang! The fist and palm collided, making a crisp sound of impact. Kacha! Fang Yan's feet sank, and both of his legs stepped into the bluestone floor at the same time, all the way to his knees. The cracks on the stone floor were still extending outwards, and the sound of stones cracking could be heard in the surroundings. Kacha! Bai Lilu punched, but he did not stop there. With the help of the rebound force, his body leaped into the air, and then he landed again. Once again, he clenched his fist and punched towards Fang Yan's head. Fang Yan raised his hand again to block. Bang! The fist and palm collided again. Kacha! Fang Yan's legs continued to sink. Bailey Lu's body rebounded into the air again, and he once again swung his star-shattering fist from above. Kacha, kacha, kacha. Fang Yan's body was like a wooden stake, being hit by a huge hammer again and again into the depths of the ground. Fang Yan's body sank, and both of his legs were almost completely submerged in the bluestone. He could feel the sharp stone fragments cutting his little brother between his legs. Bailey Lu's body flew into the air again, then he clenched his fists, and with strong winds and heavy rain, he rushed towards Fang Yan. This was the last blow. It was also a fatal blow. Walala, his body fused with the torrential storm, like a blurry shadow, a bolt of lightning that was full of lethality. Bang, bang, Bailey Lu punched again. Fang Yan raised his face, letting the bean-sized raindrops hit his cheeks, eyebrows, and eyes. The sky was gray, and covered by the curtain of rain. He could not see Bailey Lu's figure and expression at all. However, he could clearly see his fist, his cyan fist, which contained a violent power, was swung forward. Go to hell. Bailey Lu roared. Go to hell. Fang Yan also roared at the same time. This time, he did not use his hands to hold up the sky, but when Bailey Lu's fist was about to hit his head, he clenched his right fist and punched out. Bang! Bailey Lu's body was like a rocket that was launched, flying towards the boundless sky at a speed that was 10 times faster than when he came. Pfft! Fang Yan spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body fell weakly to the ground. The rain was a little lighter, and it pattered on this seemingly fresh world. The edges of the roof tiles were washed clean, and the leaves were bright. The dozen or so large vats in the courtyard had already been filled with rainwater. The raindrops that fell into the vats only caused ripples in the water. Bailey Lu only felt sweetness in his throat, and quickly drank a mouthful of strong alcohol. He did not expect that the strong smell of alcohol did not wash away the vomit, but choked it out. Pfft! Bailey Lu spat out a mouthful of blood, which was filled with the smell of alcohol. This was the third time he spat out blood. Fang Yan did not even look at him. He lay on the old rattan chair under the eaves, drinking, and his eyes were fixed on the ripples in the big vats. The courtyard belonged to the old drunkard, and the rattan chair was naturally the old drunkard's rattan chair. Of course, the alcohol they were drinking was also the alcohol brewed by the old drunkard. The old drunkard was moved by the fact that Qinya Bing died in the small courtyard, and broke all the wine vats in his courtyard. On the day when Fang Yixing died tragically and returned to the village, the old drunkard brewed a few vats of shadaozi for himself. Before he finished those vats of shadaozi, he went to the extremely cold place. Therefore, shadaozi became Fang Yan's shadaozi. What exactly happened? Bailey Lu stared at Fang Yan with a face full of unwillingness, and said, I felt that you did not use the heart of Tai Chi. Did it become a dead fetus again? Without the heart of Tai Chi, how could your punch send me flying? What kind of kung fu did you use? It was not the first time they had fought. Bailey Lu knew Fang Yan's strengths and weaknesses, and Fang Yan also knew Bailey Lu's limits. However, he could not understand the way he fought today, or the punch he threw out to counterattack. He used the star-breaking fist, the most powerful and powerful star-breaking fist among the 100 Miles godly fists. Even this move could not subdue Fang Yan, and it could not even subdue Fang Yan, who had lost the heart of Tai Chi, the Bailey family's godly fist. Was it still a godly fist? Could it be that he had been deceived by his family? You deserve it. Fang Yan glanced at him and said with a sneer. He did not bother to explain too much to him. The current Bailey Lu was not at the same level as him at all. If he wanted to fight in the future, he would fight his father or his grandfather. As for Bailey Lu himself, he was too inexperienced. Bailey Lu smiled bitterly and said, You don't really think I'm here to avenge Bai Xiu, do you? Ever since I was a child, I've always disliked that guy. He's a wild child from the outside. Just because he's with Master, he thinks he's some big shot. If you hadn't killed him first, I would have come to him and taught him a lesson on how to be a man. Then why didn't you do it earlier? Fang Yan said mockingly. At that time, the star-breaking fist hadn't been mastered, right? Bailey Lu was a little embarrassed. He drank another mouthful of liquor and said, "By show. Is he really dead?" "Dead," Fang Yen said straightforwardly. "It's good that he's dead." Bailey Lu sighed softly. "Although I used to think he was annoying, I didn't expect him to be so vicious. Such a guy actually appeared in our Swallow Fort." Master. In the end, Bailey Lu did not go too deep on the topic of master. He looked at Fang Yen and said, "I heard that you came back to force the emperor to abdicate?" "It's not really to force the emperor to abdicate. I just want to find an answer," Fang Yen said. "Have you found the answer?" Fang Yen shook his head lightly and said, "I'm still looking." "If there's a need, you're willing to help?" "I mean if there's a need for you," Bailey Lu said. Fang Yen squinted his eyes and smiled. He said, "Of course there's a need." Bailey Lu looked at Fang Yen with a puzzled expression. Fang Yen raised the bowl of liquor in his hand and said, to the old drunkard. Bailey Lu did not dare to call Mo Qingdi an old drunkard like Fang Yen. Although Mo Qingdi was not there, he still said respectfully, to Elder Mo. Fang Yen drank all the xiaodao in the bowl in one gulp. Gasping for breath, he said, "Why did you come back this time?" "To marry Yi Ro," Bailey Lu said. Chapter 722. "And then?" Fang Yen asked. His voice blended with the falling raindrops and was masked by the whistling wind, making it almost impossible to hear him clearly. However, Bailey Lu heard it clearly. He could even hear the emotion contained in the word, "and then." He was angry, and he cared a lot about it, but he pretended to not care. "And then?" "Probably the same as Yi Fengsheng. The elders of the family go to the Yi family to propose marriage and give generous betrothal gifts. First, they choose a close date to drink a glass of engagement wine, and then choose an auspicious day to complete the wedding. Enter the bridal chamber, give birth to a child. Isn't that the process of marriage? After everything is done, the two people have to spend the rest of their lives together. I won't do anything to you." Fang Yen took a big gulp of wine and said with a smile, "Yi Ro will kill you." "Yes." Bailey Lu drank up the shadaozi in one breath, wiped the wine stain on the corner of his mouth, and said, "I'll drink another bowl. I can't drink such strong shadaozi outside, and I can't drink the shadaozi brewed by Senior Mo outside." Fang Yen ignored him. He ran to the wine jar in the room and took out another big bowl. He sat back on the small stool under the eaves and continued the topic. He looked at Fang Yen and said, "Yi Ro will kill me. I know Yi Ro will kill me, and they also know Yi Ro will kill me. But why do they still want me to marry Yi Ro?" Fang Yen looked at Bailey Lu with bright eyes and a little smile. He asked, "Do you like Yi Ro?" "I asked them why do they still want me to marry Yi Ro?" Bailey Lu said angrily. "I asked first. Do you like Yi Ro?" Fang Yen asked again, and the smile on his face began to widen. Bailey Lu thought for a moment and said, "If you have to find a marriage partner, there is nothing wrong with Yi Ro." "Well, I admit that I like Yi Ro. You also know that among our group of friends, there aren't many who don't like her. At that time, we were a group of men hunting birds in the mountains and fishing in the water, but Yi Ro never played with us. Although we said she was unsociable and didn't like to play with such a girl, we actually hoped that she could be with us. If she inadvertently glanced at us, everyone's heart would pound violently, and their voices would become much louder, just like a group of little roosters that had been injected with hormones." Bai Lilu picked up the wine bowl and took a sip. He felt the strong aroma of the wine, but his eyes were fixed on the water droplets that continuously dripped from the eaves into the pool. The water droplets were like a thick transparent thread, creating small ripples in the small pool. If the water droplets were alive, would they merge with each other or be swallowed by the pool? Were their hearts filled with joy? At that time, we were all very envious and jealous of you. We wanted to play with Yi Ro, but we didn't know what reason to get close to her. You are different. Because of the competition every year, you two were born to be enemies. When a group of us stands together, when she looks over, her gaze will most likely be on you, although her gaze might not be kind. You can also go up and provoke her or even insult her, and then wait for her to retaliate. In fact, we are all envious of you. Fang Yen nodded, looked at Bai Lilu, and said, so, you like Yi Ro, so you won't object to this marriage. Even if you object, you won't object so fiercely. Yi Ro has extraordinary skills, and she may become the youngest elite in the Tao of Heaven in Swallow Fort. The Yi family is now like the sun in the sky. If you two get married, the Bailey family will also benefit a lot. Not only the Bailey family, as long as the Yi family spreads the news that Yi Ro is looking for a man, the other families in Swallow Dock will probably rush to marry her. As you said, if you want to find a woman to marry, who doesn't want to marry Yi Ro? After a pause, Fang Yen said, of course, it won't be easy for you to take advantage of this. The Yi family will never let Yi Ro go. So, did they ask you to be their son-in-law? Bailey Lu grinned and said, we can do this, but you can't. I have an elder brother and a younger brother. I have 4 or 5 cousins, and more than a dozen brothers and sisters. Even if I, Bailey Lu, sacrifice for my family or for my beauty, it's not a big deal. For example, Li Xiaotian has an elder brother, Li Xiaolong. Li Xiaolong is so powerful that he can support the Li family. It's not a bad thing for Li Xiaotian to marry into the Yi family and be the peace ambassador between the two families. You don't consider my and Yi Ro's opinions. This business is really good. Fang Yen sighed and said. What business? You put it so bluntly. This is true love. Although Yi Ro doesn't necessarily love us, we love Yi Ro. Then, let's go back to my first question, Fang Yen said with a smile. Aren't you afraid that Yi Ro will kill you? What about you? Bailey Lu looked at Fang Yen with a bowl of wine in his hand and said, like you said, you won't do anything? Yi Ro is responsible for killing people, and I'm responsible for digging holes. I can't bear to let Yi Ro bear such a heavy workload alone. Look, I know it's like this. If I only consider Yi Ro's opinion, I think I can give it a try. He thought, I'm not worse than you, Fang Yen. If I make love to you, Yi Ro may fall in love with me in the future. But if I only consider your opinion, we're brothers. I've helped you. My family forced me to do this. You can't just kill me with a sword. But if I have to consider your and Yi Ro's opinion at the same time, I'm afraid no one dares to accept this marriage, right? The weight of you and Yi Ro together is no less than that of those rich and powerful families. You are a smart man, Fang Yen said as he looked at Bailey Lu with a bowl of wine in his hand. Come on, let me toast you. Because I didn't steal your woman? No. Fang Yen shook his head and said, because you made the right choice. You should know that I will really kill people. I've already killed Bai Xiu. Bailey Lu clinked his bowl with Fang Yan's and said, some people are not easy to kill. Then kill them slowly, Fang Yan said. Anyway, I'm not too busy now. Once upon a time, there was a mountain called Monkey Mountain. There was a Taoist temple on the mountain, and there were a group of old monks in the temple. The Taoist temple was located on the mountainside of Monkey Mountain, built against the cliff. Half of the Taoist temple was suspended in the air. From a distance, it looked like it was flying in the clouds. Because of the rain, the mountain was blurred and the fog was rolling. The entire Taoist temple was shrouded by the rain and the fog. The Taoist priests in the temple were doing their evening classes in the One Mind Temple. There were also a few old Taoist priests in the kitchen, preparing dinner for the Taoist temple. Such a tranquil and comfortable scene, every day passed in this manner. In the past few decades, it was rarely broken by anything. However, today was not an ordinary day. On the cliff of the Taoist temple, a black figure was climbing along the cliff. His posture was calm and his speed was fast. He looked as if he was walking on flat ground. From the bottom to the top, he was like an agile old monkey or a soaring eagle. His body was almost flying toward the outer wall of the Taoist temple. The tips of his feet lightly touched the protruding but precipitous rocks, and then he stepped on a large rock even higher up. When his body reached the top of the void suspension temple, his body paused for a moment. He lowered his voice and looked around. Then his body jumped down like a bat and quietly entered the window of the void suspension temple. There was no one in the room, nor was there any sound. He could not even hear a person's breathing or pulse. This was something he had already inquired about when he came in. He did not stop and continued to climb until he reached the door of a locked room on the top floor. He pressed his palm on the golden lock, and his inner strength burst forth. With a slight ding, the copper lock automatically bounced open. He held the lock in his hand, pushed open the door, and entered. The room was dark, but it was not a problem for the black-clothed man. He didn't even need a flashlight to walk around the house freely. For martial artists of their level, night vision was not a very impressive skill. There were rows of bookshelves in front of him, and there were all kinds of books and ancient books on them. The room was filled with a strong scholarly atmosphere, but there was no smell of decay. Instead, there was a faint fragrance. The black-clothed man reached out and quickly searched through the books, looking for a place where the treasure could be hidden. In a very inconspicuous small house in the Taoist temple, a young Taoist was sitting on a chair, drowsily sleeping. Perhaps he was startled by the thunder outside, but he suddenly opened his eyes and wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth. Looking at the surveillance image on the TV screen in front of him and the figure busy in the dark room, the young Taoist became excited and ran towards the one-hearted sect view next door. Lowering his voice, he shouted, "Master, Master! Grand Master, someone's here to steal the Tai Chi painting again. Someone's here to steal the Tai Chi painting again." Chapter 723. The sky was dark and misty, and the rain was hazy. The old parasol tree in the courtyard was washed clean by the rain, and the large leaves of the parasol tree showed the green color of their youth, like green jadeite leaves that had just bloomed. There was an open vat under the Chinese parasol tree. The water in the broken vat was already full, and the new water flowed out, flowing into the stream next to the courtyard. Tiny ripples appeared on the surface of the water because of the newly fallen raindrops. Occasionally, large ripples would appear, stirring up the water in the vat, as if there was an invisible monster hiding at the bottom of the vat. However, it didn't show its head, and there was no way to see its true appearance. Splash, a big red fish emerged from the water, opening its mouth and spitting out bubbles, catching the rootless water falling from the sky. It seemed as if something had bitten its tail, and then it suddenly dove into the bottom of the pond. Splash, water splashed everywhere, and the water swayed even more violently. With the heart of the water as the center, ripples began to spin in the vat. The black shadow was still searching in the room, flipping through the precious ancient books and then throwing them to the side. His movements were extremely fast, but he almost didn't make any sound. The room was still pitch black, and other than the flickering light from his pupils, it was difficult to see any other light. Swoosh, a cool breeze blew toward his back. If it was someone else, they would just think that there was a breeze blowing, and their back was slightly cold. However, for the black-robed man, even the slightest movement in the surrounding dozens of feet could not escape his perception. He didn't make any movements, but his body actually disappeared from where he stood. Crack, countless fine threads of the horsetail whisk slapped the bookshelf, and the bookshelf was cut into countless pieces. That wasn't a natural wind, but a breeze caused by the attack of the horsetail whisk. After missing its attack, the horsetail whisk flicked, and it once again chased after the black-robed man not far away. This time, the direction of the horsetail whisk's attack was that pair of bright eyes. In this dark space, the pair of eyes were a little too bright. Swoosh, there was another faint breeze. The person holding the horsetail whisk leaped up, and his Taoist robe opened, but there was no sound. His appearance, his attack, and his attack, all of them had not made a single sound. He didn't even speak. Even his breathing was so soft that it couldn't be heard. This person was using the Taoist's turtle breathing technique. His internal organs were like a turtle in a dormant state, but his body still maintained a powerful offensive ability. *********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************̈ bookshelf again. The bookshelf could not withstand such gravity, and with a crack, a wooden board fell off. Then, the entire bookshelf began to collapse, making a crashing sound. What was different was that this time, the direction in which the man in black disappeared was not to dodge or retreat. Instead, he took the initiative to greet the horsetail whisk. "Evil creature, you're courting death." The middle-aged Taoist priest was infuriated by the black-clothed man's arrogant and conceited behavior. He bellowed and suddenly withdrew his horsetail whisk. Then, he swung it towards the black-clothed man's chest. This time, the horsetail whisks were no longer gathered together. Instead, they were scattered and flew towards the man in black like countless flying needles. The fine threads on the horsetail whisk actually broke free from the handle and became a dense mass of deadly hidden weapons that covered all the important acupuncture points on the man's chest and face. "Ignorant child, don't scold me." The black-clothed man scolded, and at the same time, he swung his palm out. If there were bystanders, they would definitely be amused by this scene. The black-clothed man came to steal someone's treasure, but after being caught red-handed, he did not want to let others scold him. This was truly tyrannical. What was even funnier was that he called a middle-aged Taoist priest an ignorant child. Whose child would grow up so quickly? This humble Taoist is Fragrant Flower Pavilion's book reader, Qing Xian. Who are you? The Taoist sect had a saying, 3 secrets and 7 mysteries. The 3 secrets were the 3 top experts of the Ji generation, while the 7 mysteries were the heroes of the Xian generation. The 3 secrets and 7 mysteries each had their own strengths, and they were the backbone of the Taoist sect. 3 secrets and 7 mysteries. Let's see if you're fishing for fame. As the black-clothed man spoke, the wind from his large palm swept away the sword-like hard needles. Dong dong dong, the needles pierced into the wall or bookshelf, making dull sounds. Qing Xian was shocked. It was very common to use the strength of one's palm to deflect hidden weapons. However, what he swung out were countless hairs of the horsetail whisk, and he used the powerful technique of sweeping away an army of 1,000. Receiving 1 hidden weapon was not considered a skill, and receiving 3 to 5 hidden weapons was understandable. However, how much strength did one need to slap out thousands of hairs at the same time? Who was this person? How did he have such strength? While Qing Xian was shocked, he already held the horsetail whisk and moved towards the black-clothed man. After the black-clothed man swatted away the hairs, his momentum did not decrease. He ignored the sharp handle in Qing Xian's hand, and his palm landed on Qing Xian's chest. Puff! Qing Xian immediately spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body flew backwards. Clang! His body smashed heavily onto a row of bookshelves, causing them to topple over. This triggered a domino effect, and the bookshelves were also smashed down. Dust flew everywhere in the room, and books fell to the ground, making a hissing sound. Puff! After Qing Xian's body fell to the ground, he spat out another mouthful of blood. He held his chest and asked, "Who are you?" Actually, when he asked this question, the answer was already very clear. Because in the entire Huaxia, there were very few people who could send him flying with 1 palm, the black-clothed man did not answer Qing Xian's question. Instead, he walked towards Qing Xian step by step, and asked in a low voice, "Where is the Tai Chi painting?" The black-clothed man's theft had been discovered, and he had caused such a huge commotion. Not only did he not escape immediately, but he also continued to ask about the treasure. "You are also here for the Tai Chi painting. Who are you? Where is the Tai Chi painting?" The black-clothed man had already walked in front of Qing Xian, and he looked down at him. "Don't waste time. If I attack again, you will already be dead. You should have been killed by me just now. How can Qing Xian? How can I be threatened by evil people?" Qing Xian held his chest and laughed coldly. He wanted to stand up, but his internal organs were seriously injured, and he could not move. "It's just death. I am a monk. Why would I care about this?" Then you can go and die, the black-clothed man said expressionlessly. As he spoke, he lifted his foot and was about to step down. Immeasurable heavenly venerate. An old voice came through the window. The voice was loud and clear, like thunder. It was so loud that it made one's eardrums buzz. Mr. Black Dragon, you have the time to come to Immeasurable Temple as a guest. Why are you doing such a secretive thing? Why are you fighting with a junior? The black-clothed man glanced at Qing Xian and knew that he could not step down anymore. The leader of the group had stood up, but he still attacked an injured junior. It was really embarrassing. Old Taoist Tai Chong, you are not dead yet, the black-clothed man shouted outside. The moment he spoke, the buzzing in his ears immediately disappeared. Using sound to attack the enemy and using sound to subdue the enemy was the principle of imbuing strength into one's voice. For experts of their level, there was nothing in the world that could not injure or subdue the enemy. Who cares about life and death? The old voice said with a smile. Since Mr. Black Dragon is here, would you like to come out and meet me? Why not? The black-clothed man said aloud. He slapped the tightly locked window of the house with his palm. The window made of rosewood shattered into sawdust and scattered in all directions. The black-clothed man's feet did not move. He did not need any leverage, but he had already flown out of the window. Cha! His feet landed on a bluestone in the courtyard. The bluestone did not move at all. Not even the rainwater beneath his feet was disturbed. Black clothes and a black hat. His entire body was shrouded in darkness. His face could not be seen clearly. Even his figure could not be seen clearly. He stood there motionless, but his body seemed to be wrapped in a layer of gauze, wrapped in a layer of fog. It was illusory and real, and one could never find his true body. In the courtyard, dozens of Taoist priests gathered around. There were old Taoist priests with white beards, and there were also some young and naive Taoist priests. They looked at the man in black who was hiding in the wind and rain with a common enemy. There was no joy nor sorrow, only some anger spreading in their hearts. They did not provoke anyone, but there was always someone who came to their house to steal things and hurt their loved ones. This kind of thing would not feel good to anyone. Were monks not human? However, they did not act rashly. Because the person standing in the black shadow was called the Black Dragon, the most elusive and most unfathomable Black Dragon, one of the 3 divine dragons of Huaxia. Even though they were experienced and knowledgeable, they had to say, the guest who came to visit today was also a legendary figure. In the middle of the crowd of Taoist priests stood an old man in a light-colored Taoist robe. The old man's hair and beard were all black, and there were not many wrinkles on his face. However, his voice was extremely old, like an old monster that had lived for hundreds of years. The old man straightened his back and stood in the middle of the crowd. He looked at the black-clothed divine dragon and said, "Which Tai Chi diagram do you want? Treasures of heaven and earth belong to virtuous people." The black dragon said calmly. Even though he was surrounded by so many people, he was not afraid at all. "You have no use for it. I will take it myself." "If you can't take it, doesn't that prove that you are a person without virtue?" Taoist Tai Chong joked. "I haven't taken it yet." "How do you know I can't take it?" "I'm afraid you can't take it," Tai Chong said with great certainty. "The world is so big. If I want to leave, who can stop me? If I want to come, who can stop me?" The black-robed man said with a sonorous voice. Chapter 724. The world is so big, if I want to leave, who can stop me? If I want to come, who can stop me? The black-clothed man's voice was powerful, and it sounded like he was full of confidence when he said this. And he stood there with his head held high, fearless of the wind and rain, looking like a majestic idiot. "Such heavy rain, can't you just stand under the eaves for a while?" It had to be said that some martial arts masters did things to show off, and it was still very objectionable. Did standing in the courtyard with an umbrella make people think that you're not a black dragon or a peerless master? Not friendly at all. Black Dragon, don't be presumptuous. My immeasurable temple is the orthodox Taoism. How dare you come here and behave atrociously? Are you trying to bully my immeasurable temple? Let me meet him. Immeasurable Temple had always been known as the orthodox Taoism, the foundation of Taoism, and the place where many strong masters came from. Sect Master Tai Chong, Junior Brother Tai Su, and Tai Ying, the three great celestial masters had already entered the heavenly Tao realm, and their martial arts had reached perfection. Because these people were old and had high status, they were dedicated to Taoism, and almost did not get involved in worldly affairs. Therefore, the outside world was familiar with the 3 secrets and 7 mysteries. Fang Yan's Taoist master Tian Jizi was one of the 3 secrets, and he was likely to take over the Taoism palm seal. Tao addict Song Zaniang was about the same age as Tian Jizi, but he had a very high seniority, and was the last disciple of the previous Taoism sect master. Fu Xing Tai Su was in seclusion and did not come out for several years, and Tai Ying was in the Monkey Mountains cave of no solution. Only Tai Chong could suppress the black dragon. Tai Chong did not say anything, but the descendants of Taoism around him had already started to retaliate. Although they were monks, they had profound cultivation and were proud and arrogant. Today, they were bullied by the black dragon, and they were already sulking. Now that they heard the black dragon's arrogant words, they naturally wanted to rush up and fight him for 300 rounds. The black dragon sneered and said, "The 3 secrets and 7 mysteries are well known in the outside world, and I think they should have some real skills. But I just met a guy in the library who called himself Qing Xian. I think he should be one of the 7 mysteries." In the end, he was slapped by me in 1 round. Although he has some backbone, what's the use? Didn't he still fall to the ground with a slap? Black Dragon, how dare you bully junior apprentice brother Qing Xian? I'm Yu Xian, I'll fight you. Everyone, let's get rid of this old fellow. He's really going too far. Mr. Black Dragon is a guest from afar. Everyone, don't be rude. Taoist Taichung said. The old Taoist priest Taichung's prestige was extremely high. As soon as he opened his mouth to speak, there was not the slightest bit of noise in the courtyard. Taoist Taichung looked at the black dragon and said, "If you are a friendly guest, we will naturally welcome you with tea, but if you are a malicious guest who wants to steal our treasures, our immeasurable monastery can only sweep you out. Does Mr. Black Dragon want to leave on your own, or do you want us to drive you away?" It had to be said that the black dragon did have the ability to act tough. If an ordinary person were to stand in the rain, they would have long been drenched. How could a drowned rat have any prestige to speak of? The black dragon was different. He had been standing in the rain for a long time, and the rain today was indeed very heavy. The rain was boundless, but not a single drop fell on Black Dragon's clothes. Even now, his body remained dry and clean. He did not move at all, but the black robe on his body fluttered, and a rain of arrows flew out in all directions of the courtyard. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Countless raindrops turned into countless rain arrows, and countless rain arrows flew towards the surrounding Taoist priests. The young Taoist priests retreated nervously. The middle-aged Taoist priest and the old Taoist priest came forward and waved their sleeves. With a flick of their horsetail whisks, they sent the rain arrows flying. "This is to teach you a lesson for not being polite," the black dragon said in a gloomy voice. The black dragon did not intend to use this move to injure anyone. He only wanted to create some chaos in the crowd. Taichung and a few older Taoist priests stood there expressionlessly. When the rain arrows flew in front of them, they automatically bounced off, as though they had encountered an invisible wall. Even the young Taoist priest standing behind them would not be harmed in any way. After the black dragon was done teaching the young one a lesson, his gaze shifted to the old one. He looked at the old Taoist priest Taichung and said, "Taichung, I'm here for the Taiji painting. Give me the Taiji painting and I will naturally leave." The Taiji painting already has a successor. It will be sent out on a chosen day. "Naturally, I can't give it to you," said the old Taoist priest Taichung indifferently. "Who can obtain this Taiji painting?" asked the black dragon in surprise. Naturally, it's a fated person. A fated person? The black dragon sneered. You monks and Taoist priests just like to play tricks. What do you mean by fated people? Those who have a close relationship with you are fated people. It's fine if those vulgar people in the outside world like to play tricks behind the scenes, but even you monks and Taoist priests like to play such tricks. Don't you have any shame? You keep saying that you believe in gods, but if there really is a god, the first thing they will punish would be believers like you who are duplicitous and use their name to cheat. Heavenly Lord of the Immeasurable, Taichung chanted and said, it looks like this old Taoist will have to do something today. To be able to fight with old Taoist Taichung, it's not a wasted trip. As the black dragon spoke, his body vanished into thin air. When he appeared again, he had already leaped in front of the old Taoist priest Taichung, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. It was not the black dragon's usual movements, but the ultimate technique that the black dragon was currently using. This ultimate technique was called appearing and disappearing like a ghost. Apart from a very small number of experts in the world, very few people could track his movements. Just like his nickname, the Black Dragon, he was hidden in the darkness, and all one could see was nothingness. The Black Dragon was currently in a state of nothingness, and his body had turned into a blurry figure. It was just like the name of a very popular television series a few years ago, like fog, rain, and wind. He struck out with his palm, and the palm that he struck out also turned illusory. It was not a shadow, but a palm formation formed by countless palm shadows. With just a light palm strike, the black dragon locked onto the old Taoist priest Taichung's chi activity. Like an invisible electric net, it trapped his hands, his feet, and every part of his body that could attack. When experts exchanged blows, the first thing they competed on was chi activity. The black dragon's chi activity was powerful, and he had struck first. It looked like he had already gained the upper hand. Just as the illusory palm prints were about to strike the old Taoist priest Taichung's chest, the old Taoist priest's body disappeared. No, he did not disappear. He just suddenly disappeared right under people's noses, and then reappeared even more suddenly. It was as if he had used the invisibility technique once, and then instantly lost its effect. Then, Black Dragon's charging body was sent flying backwards. Whoosh! His black robe fluttered in the wind. Crack! The Black Dragon's feet stood on the large vat in the courtyard, and he broke a small corner of the vat. Then, he looked in Taichung's direction in surprise. Final radiance of the setting sun, rebirth after death. The Black Dragon chuckled. Interesting. In the large vat behind him, two big fish, one black and one white, poked their heads out. The wedding date for Yi Fengsheng and Bailey Qingzhu had been roughly set. Because they already had a child in their wombs, many things had to be simplified and done quickly. They had to get married within a month. After all, they could not let the girl's belly grow big, or the news spread before they got married. If that happened, it would not look good on both sides. Fang Yan was originally going to return to Huaqing in the next few days. There were still a lot of things to take care of there. But now, it was very difficult for him to leave. On one hand, he had promised Zhang Jianjun that he would complete a mission for the country. He was duty-bound to help the country. Moreover, Swallow Dock had been doing this all these years. Some obtained merit, and some were buried in the earth. But, no one had ever retreated. In addition, he wanted to wait until his good brother Yi Fengsheng got married before returning. Yi Fengsheng was the first to get married among his group of brothers, and he might be the first to become a father. Of course, he could not rule out the possibility that some of these fellows had illegitimate children that could already be used as soy sauce. Yi Fengsheng spread the news that Zhu Ziden, who was far away in the North Sea, was also said to be coming back. At that time, his group of brothers could have a good reunion. Most importantly, Fang Yan could not bear to go back. During the days he was in Swallow Dock, he accompanied his mother to the mausoleum in the back mountain every morning to sweep his father's grave. He would pour a cup of wine for him, light a stick of incense, and then help his mother tidy up her vegetable garden. In the afternoon, he would chat with his grandfather, and push his wheelchair and the Vajra eagle around Shahizi. The rest of the time was used to accompany Yi-Ro, walking with her, eating with her, watching the sunrise with her, and watching the sunset with her. Because Yi-Ro was seriously injured while climbing the heavens path, she still could not practice martial arts. Therefore, Fang Yen took her around all day, and the Yi family did not say anything. Yi Daowen seemed to have forgotten the unpleasant conversation with his daughter, and turned a deaf ear to her disobedient behavior. It was as if it had never happened. Yi-Ro and Yi-Ro made a bet because of Fang Yen. Although Yi-Ro won the bet, she still promised to take a day to go shopping with Yi-Ro, although she did not know what to do. Hearing that Yi-Ro and Yi-Ro were going shopping in Yanjing City, Fang Yen volunteered to take the responsibility of driving them. Now, he followed behind the two women, carrying big and small bags in his hands, but what he got was all kinds of dissatisfaction from Yi-Ro. "Sister, we are going shopping, why do we need to bring a third wheel? I was going to take you to see a handsome guy." Yi-Ro complained, but she pulled Yi-Ro into one brand store after another to try on clothes and shoes. "You can also go to see handsome guys now. After seeing them, you will find that a man with inner qualities like me is really rare." Fang Yen said with a smile, and kept making eyes at Yi-Ro along the way. When he was in Swallow Dock, he always had the feeling that he was being watched. He couldn't do anything intimate with Yi-Ro. After coming out, the sky was high and the sea was wide, and it was easy to do something overboard. Fang Yen was even thinking of not going back tonight. He was going to find a hotel and get a room. But, what about Yi-Ro? This third wheel is really annoying. Chapter 725. Fang Yen and Yezi disliked each other. They both thought the other was a third party. Yezi thought it was not easy for her to ask her sister Yi-Ro out to go shopping. She wanted to introduce her to her life and social circle so that she would not be so introverted in the future. However, why did a man like Fang Yen follow them? Fang Yan's idea was even simpler. If they didn't go back to Swallow Dock at night, how many rooms should they get in the hotel? If they got one room, neither Yezi or Yi-Ro would agree. If they got 2 rooms, would he sleep with Yi-Ro or Yezi? In this hostile atmosphere, Yi took Yi-Ro's hand and walked into a world-famous luxury flagship store. There were bodyguards at the door and more than a dozen people were waiting in line at the door. Yezi seemed to be used to this kind of thing. She took Yi-Ro and stood in line at the back of the crowd. Fang Yen walked behind them with big and small bags and whispered to Yi-Ro, "Shall we go to another store? There are too many people in this store and we need to wait in line." "Idiot." Yezi rolled her eyes and sneered, "This is to make it easier for distinguished guests to shop, so they limit the number of people entering the store at a time. If this kind of brand store is as crowded as a super mall, who would want to go in? This is hunger marketing." Fang Yen said with a smile, "You should have learned this knowledge in college, right?" They let a group of people stand in line at the door to tell others to come quickly. "If you don't come soon, there will be no more customers." This kind of solicitation is so childish and so many people are fooled. I really don't understand. You are childish. The things in this store are all limited products. If you don't buy them, they will be bought by others. You won't understand. When Fang Yen was about to refute, he saw a beautiful woman in a red dress walking towards them with a middle-aged man. She said in a sweet voice, "Honey, this is the place. I want that new bag. Can you buy it for me?" The middle-aged man seemed to dote on his little lover. He put his arm around her shoulder and said with a smile, "Okay, if you want it, we will buy it." "Thank you, husband." The woman pounced on him and kissed him hard on the face in front of everyone in the mall. When the woman came to the door, she saw Yi, who was waiting in line at the door. She exclaimed and said, "Hey, isn't this Yi Xinchen? Yi Xinchen, why are you here?" Yi glanced at the woman coldly and said, "What do you have to do with me eating? There's no food here." The woman giggled and hugged the middle-aged man next to her. "Honey, this is my classmate, Yi Xinchan. Her favorite brands are Nike and Adidas Shamrock. I've never seen her here before. Yi squinted at her college classmate, Li Mo, and sneered, what's wrong with me liking Nike and Clover? At least I bought it with my own money. It's refreshing and comfortable to wear. Unlike some people who are like blood-sucking maggots. Who knows what kind of shameful things they would do for a bag. Fang Yan knew the background of the Yi family. With Yi Daoling's status as the economic lifeline of the country at this time, wouldn't it be easy for his baby daughter to buy any brand of bag? Besides, the Yi family also had their own business. Their business was very big. Although they were not as rich as Qinitian, it was not too difficult to buy this brand store or the Friendship Mall where they were standing now. Because of Yi Daoling's sensitive identity, Yi would not wear clothes that were too ostentatious to bring trouble to her father. Besides, although Yi did not learn martial arts, she also had the inheritance of a martial arts family. Her usual clothes were mainly casual and sportswear like Nike Clover. Occasionally, she would extravagantly buy a branded bag and an expensive skirt. Unexpectedly, Ye's low-key had also become the point of attack between the classmates. Yi Xinchan, what are you talking about? Who is a blood-sucking maggot? You asked your parents for money, aren't you a blood-sucking maggot? Okay. The middle-aged man patted Li Mo's shoulder and comforted her, we are all classmates. Don't be angry. When the middle-aged man saw Ye's appearance, he had an instant feeling of amazement. When he saw Yi Ro, who was holding Ye's arm, he felt that this woman should only be in heaven. It was rare to see her on earth. He was a playboy. He had the calmness of a middle-aged man, but he still felt that his heart was beating fiercely. The man took the initiative to reach out to Yi and said amiably, Yi Xinchan, hello, I am Hu Jianyu. Do you like this brand too? Li Mo also likes this brand of bags and clothes. I don't know how many I have bought for her. You and Li Mo are classmates. It is rare for us to meet today. Do you want to go shopping together? This has nothing to do with vanity. Girls still need a few beautiful clothes and a branded bag to keep up appearances. Don't you think so? Hu Jianyu had already revealed his wealth in a few words, and he also revealed the information that he was interested in Yi. As for whether they would accept his kindness or not, it would depend on whether they were tempted by his bait. He had seen too many women like this. On the surface, they were as cold as icebergs or looked like they were not moved by money, but in private, they would take the initiative to leave their phone numbers, waiting for a more fierce attack. Yi was not willing to shake hands with Hu Jianyu at all. She stared at him coldly and said impatiently, I don't know you. Yi Xinchan, you didn't know me before, but you will know me in the future. You see, even if we met before, I didn't know your name, right? I said, I don't know you, and I don't want to know you. For Yi, such a man was really not appetizing at all. Not to mention the outstanding young people working around her father, even some pursuers in the school were thousands of times better than him. Although she liked to keep a low profile, her father was in such a prominent position. How could she hide it from some people? At least the sons and daughters of some of the heads in the state ministries and commissions were aware of her identity. She never grouped with others, but those people still intentionally or unintentionally pulled her into such a circle. If you can, don't disturb my sister and me anymore. Okay? Hu Jianyu's face became gloomy, and he said sarcastically, little girl, you have quite a character. I hope you can always have such a character. Li Mo originally wanted to show off that she had a rich godfather, but she felt a sense of crisis from Hu Jianyu's attitude towards Yi Xinchan. Only then did she realize what a stupid thing she had done. She hugged Hu Jianyu's shoulder tighter, smiled sweetly, and said, honey, my classmate is not very good at talking. Don't lower yourself to her level. Let's go. Don't let these small people affect our mood. Let's go in and see the bags. Let them continue to line up. Li Mo showed her VIP card, and the bodyguard at the door immediately pulled the rope and let her go. This made some people who were still lining up at the door a little dissatisfied, but they soon calmed down. Such behavior was most acceptable to the rich. They didn't think it was a privilege, but they regretted that their wealth hadn't reached such a level. She's sick. Yezi cursed in a low voice. This woman usually has princess syndrome. She commands people and scolds them all day long. Seeing that I have a good relationship with my classmates, she dislikes me everywhere. Several times she said in front of everyone that I am simple. I just like simple. What's wrong with that? Who wants to dress like a lady like her? Fang Yan tried to hold back his laughter. He didn't expect that Yezi would also be bullied. Fang Yan was very satisfied to see such a good show while waiting in line. Anyway, the person they bullied wasn't Yi Ro. Of course, no one dared to bully Yi Ro. Yi Ro held her hand and said, "If you kill a fly, will you keep that fly in your heart?" "Of course not," Yezi said proudly. "I don't care about her. Anyway, I'm very angry." After all the people in front of them had gone in, it was Yezi's turn with Yi Ro and Fang Yan. Yezi had paid attention to the new models of this brand, so she went straight to the front counter. Liemo was choosing bags. Seeing Yezi coming, she said to the salesgirl next to her, "Give me that red one, that yellow one, and that white one. If you don't have the black one, forget it. Give me all the new models in this series." "Okay, please wait a moment," the salesgirl said respectfully. In the face of their VIP card users, this kind of request must be met. Even if ordinary users had such requirements, they had to meet them. Yezi ran to the counter, pointed to a yellow bag, and said, "Give me that one." The salesgirl smiled apologetically and said, "Miss, please wait a moment. This yellow bag has been chosen by that lady. Then take out the other samples for me to see. Miss, you know that this is a limited edition. How about you look at other styles first? When this lady finishes choosing, I'll bring them to you." Limo giggled and said to the salesgirl, "You don't have to work for her. This bag is worth more than 100,000 yuan. How can she afford it? I just wanted to come and take a look to clear my name." Hu Jianyu looked at this scene with a smile on his face. He felt very happy in his heart. Chapter 726. Yezi glared at Liemo angrily, but she didn't want to be entangled with her in such a crowded place. It would be the two of them who would lose face. She snorted, turned around and walked to other places. Yi Ro finally looked up at Liemo. She didn't say anything to her, and followed Yezi to the clothing area. Yezi took Yi Ro's hand and said with a smile, "Sister, you shouldn't always wear the training clothes. Although I think you look good in the training clothes, you should always wear some clothes that girls like, right? I think you will look like a fairy if you wear a beautiful dress. I think the dresses in this shop are very suitable for you. You can choose whatever you like. I'll pay the bill today. I've been saving up my lucky money and annual dividends." Yi Ro looked at the dazzling clothes on the clothes rack, shook her head, and said, "I already have clothes to wear." "Oh, how long have you been wearing those clothes? I think you should throw them away. Also, those dresses of yours were made by the old tailor at home. It's not that she's bad, but when you think about how your clothes were designed by the same designer as your ancestors' clothes, just thinking about it gives you goosebumps, right? You're not an old woman." Fang Yan quite agreed with Yezi's suggestions. Who didn't want their girlfriend to dress up beautifully? Who didn't like their girlfriend to dress up gorgeously? Always wearing white or black training clothes looked simple and elegant, but it was necessary to change the style, right? And the police uniform, the stewardess uniform, the nurse uniform, and the female prisoner uniform. Life was short, and every kind of life should be experienced. Otherwise, she would have come to this world in vain. Fang Yan thought it was time for Yi Ro to make some changes. So, Fang Yan stood beside him and echoed, "I think Yezi is right. Your clothes are either black or white, and most of them are the same style of training clothes made by the old tailor in your family. How many clothes have you bought? You're still a young girl. How can you share the same designer with an old lady? It's rare for you to come out today. You should buy more clothes for yourself. Didn't Yezi say so? She paid for it. Yi Zi was furious. She stared at Fang Yen with her big round eyes and said, Fang Yen, do you have any shame? How could you say something like that? You also know that my sister's clothes are either black or white? You also know that she doesn't have many bright clothes? Since you knew, why didn't you think of buying her clothes? Are you a good boyfriend? No wonder eldest uncle and the others don't agree to the marriage between you and my sister. If it were me, I wouldn't agree either. I'm worried that my sister will have to suffer if she marries into the Fang family. I do want to buy one, but your sister has to give me a chance first, Fang Yen said with a wronged expression. A few days ago, I said that I wanted to bring her to Beijing for a walk, but she refused. If she doesn't come with me, how am I going to choose clothes for her? You can't buy these clothes in Swallow Dock. Yi sneered and said, that's because my sister knows you're up to no good. What you said is too much. What kind of person do you think I, Fang Yen, am? I never thought of deliberately taking your sister to a hotel in Yanjing to get a room. Anyway, she's my wife. Why should I be anxious about this kind of thing? You said it. Then tonight my sister will go back with me and stay at my house. I've also stayed at your house. Your house is not big, and it's not convenient to stay there. I've already booked a hotel room. Fang Yen, didn't you say that you never thought about it? I didn't think about it, Fang Yen said. That's what I naturally did. Moreover, I booked a double standard. Each of us has a big bed. Can sleeping in the same room make you pregnant? Shameless. You're prejudiced against me. Anyway, I won't let my sister be alone with you. How can you be so shameless? I only booked a room. Why do you have to come and squeeze with us? What if you peep at me when I take a shower and change clothes? Let me tell you, I'm still a virgin. Although I've been laughed at, it proves that I'm not a casual man. I'm not willing to share the same room with a woman I'm not familiar with. Who wants to share a room with you? Who wants to peep at you taking a shower and changing clothes? You want to peep at me taking a shower and changing clothes, right? Look, you've exposed yourself. You just want to sleep in the same room with us. Fang Yen looked at Yi Ro and said seriously, let your sister go home by herself at night. You can't leave a beauty with us. You know that I'm not a man who can stay calm even when I'm in love. Yi Ro smiled and watched Yi and Fang Yen quarrel. Although she didn't like to talk, she liked such a lively scene. Because she felt that Fang Yen regarded Yi as his family. She regarded her family as his family, and she liked this feeling. Sister. Yi stamped her feet and said, you can't sleep with him at night. But I can't sleep with you. Who wants to sleep with you? In your dreams. Yi wanted to rush up and beat up Fang Yen. She said, my sister will sleep with me tonight. You can sleep in the hotel. Yi Ro is my girlfriend. Why should she go back with you? She's also my sister. Yi sneered. If she doesn't go back with me, I'll call my uncle. I'm not a troublemaker, but I can't stand this kind of thing. Fang Yen said to Yi Ro angrily, she dared to threaten you. If I were you, I wouldn't go back tonight. I'd like to see what they can do to you. Yi Ro smiled, put her arm around Ye's shoulder and said, I'll go back with you. Fang Yen felt that his head was going to explode. All his hopes were shattered. The police uniforms, the flight attendant uniforms, the nurse uniforms, and the female prisoner uniforms were all gone. Yi glanced at Fang Yen proudly and said, where were we? By the way, we need to choose clothes. Yi took Yi Ro's hand and walked to the clothes rack. She picked out a blue dress and said, sister, I think you must look beautiful in this dress. Why don't you try it? Miss, you really have a good taste. This is our latest style this year. The salesgirl next to her flattered in time. Yi Ro didn't hesitate. She lifted the dress and walked into the changing room. Yi and Fang Yen were waiting at the door. Yi sneered and said, "Don't think I don't know what you men are thinking." "You really don't know," Fang Yen said seriously. "Don't you just want to sleep with my sister?" "No, I don't. I just want to give your sister a chance to sleep with me." Fang Yen shook his head and said, "I'm afraid that your sister will be suffocated." Fang Yen. "We're all adults. We have to face this kind of problem. I knew you were shameless, but now I know you're even more shameless than I thought. I just don't understand why you don't like me. Why should I like you? What do you have that makes me like you? I'm kind-hearted and kind. You don't have any of these, do you? Yo, are you flirting with your boyfriend?" The annoying voice sounded again. Liamo walked over with her boyfriend, Hu Jianyu. "Liamo, he's not my boyfriend," Yi retorted angrily. It was okay to say that she was poor or ugly, but it was too insulting to say that Fang Yen was her boyfriend. Yi couldn't accept it at all. Calm down, calm down. I'm just saying," Liamo said with a smile. "I know you have a good relationship with many boys at school. At that time, I also thought they were your boyfriends. But then I thought it was not right. How can someone have so many boyfriends? So, this one must not be your boyfriend." "Liamo." Yi raised her voice and shouted. This time, she was really angry. "Are you done? What do you mean I'm done? I came to say hello to you when I met my classmates. What's wrong with that? What's wrong? Did I expose your secret? Did I let you expose the fact that you have a lot of lovers? I didn't say anything wrong. It's just like that. Do you believe that I won't tear your mouth apart?" "I don't believe it," Liamo said word by word. "Yi Xinshan, those boys flatter you. I won't give you face. I don't believe it. I'm standing here today. What can you do to me?" Yi didn't say a word. She slapped Liamo's face. "Pa!" Liamo's slap missed because her tender arm was held by Meng Jianyu, who had been keeping an eye on her. Meng Jianyu scolded Yi while feeling the smoothness in his hand. He said with a straight face, "Why are you so uneducated? You can't beat others with words? Who are your parents? Is this how they discipline their children? You look beautiful, but what you do is so shameful. You're a typical green tea bitch." Fang Yen. Yi cried. At this time, she really needed support. Fang Yen threw the big and small bags in his hand on the ground. He looked at Meng Jianyu and said, "Let go of your hand." "What are you?" Meng Jianyu stared at Fang Yen with disdain and said, "Where did this little wild dog come from?" "But it's true. A bitch with a dog is a genius." Fang Yen grinned and said, "It's quite smooth." As he spoke, he punched Meng Jianyu's nose. Chapter 727. Crack, there was a crisp sound, and then a stream of blood rushed forward. Because Meng Jianyu was facing Yezi, when his nose spurted blood, Yezi and the salesgirl standing next to her suffered at the same time. Yezi's body was splashed with some bright red blood, and the salesgirl, who was about to step forward to stop the fight, was covered with red blood. Ah! The salesgirl was a young and beautiful girl. She had never experienced such a scene. She reached out to touch her face, and then her hands were full of blood. She was so scared that her face turned red and she screamed. Meng Jianyu glanced at the salesgirl and thought to himself, "He hit my nose, why are you screaming? How can you steal the limelight like this?" After condemning the salesgirl for overstepping her authority, Meng Jianyu screamed at the top of his voice like a victim should. "Ah!" Meng Jianyu also screamed. He felt that his moaning was much more authentic and passionate than the salesgirl. His nose really hurt. His body fell back a few steps quickly, and then he stopped leaning against a shelf. Meng Jianyu reached out to touch his nose, but the pain there made him dare not touch it at all. He couldn't even touch it lightly. Women with big breasts reacted slowly. Liamo finally saw what was happening in front of her. After screaming, "Ah," 3 times in a row with a high decibel voice, she finally stole the limelight. Liamo carried the bag in her hand and quickly ran to Meng Jianyu's side. She reached out to touch his nose and cried, "Honey, how are you? Are you okay? It hurts." Slap. Meng Jianyu slapped her face and scolded, "Are you AF * king idiot? Didn't you see my nose? My nose collapsed. It collapsed. Motherf * cur, it hurts like hell. I tell you, it's not over today." Liamo was slapped in the face, leaving a clear palm print on her face. After standing there for a while, she ignored Yezi's sympathetic eyes and walked towards the man again. She blushed and apologized, "Honey, I'm sorry, I was too worried about you. Are you okay? Let's go to the hospital." "What hospital?" "Call someone for me." Meng Jianyu pointed at Fang Yan and then at Yezi. He covered the blood on his face and cursed, "I want them to die. I want them to die without a burial place. Bitches and dogs will last forever. This son of AB * tch dared to hit me. He broke my nose, I want him to suffer a fate worse than death. Call old Six, quickly call my good brother old Six, ask him to bring his brothers here." The door of the changing room was open from the inside, and Yi Ro, who had changed into a long blue dress, stood at the door. She saw where Meng Jianyu was pointing and heard her cursing. She couldn't help but raise her brows and say, "Don't scold people. Don't curse. I'm going to F * king beat someone up." Meng Jianyu turned around and saw Yi Ro. He was instantly stunned. But at this time, he was so angry that he lost control of his emotions. "You're not a good person either. One look and I can tell you're a green tea bitch." Yi Ro didn't understand what green tea bitch meant, but she understood the sentence, "You're not a good person either. How dare you insult my woman? I don't even dare to curse, but you dare to curse my woman." Fang Yan strode forward, wanting to give this reckless guy a piece of advice. Unfortunately, it was too late. Yi Ro's body suddenly jumped up. Yes, in this world-famous luxury store, she was wearing a blue dress that she had just changed into, and her body jumped up high like a little fairy. She jumped so high that Fang Yan could hear the exclamations around him. "Look, that girl, Mom, sister jumped so high, amazing, is this a movie?" Yi Ro's body almost hit the ceiling of the store. She flew over the heads of several customers, and then began to fall. She flew above Meng Jianyu's head. When Meng Jianyu looked up, he could clearly see Yi Ro's feet, his pupils dilated, and his mouth opened wider. Then, he couldn't see anything. Yi Ro slapped Meng Jianyu's face with one foot, and kicked sideways with the other. Bang! Meng Jianyu's body flew up into the air, and then rolled away on the ground. Crack! Yi Ro landed lightly on the ground. She did look like a beautiful fairy. Liamo rushed over like a shrew, reaching out to tear Yi Ro's face, and cursed, "You slut, I'll tear your face off." Pa! Without the slightest hesitation, Yi Ro sent out another kick. So, Li Mo's body also rolled away. When Fang Yan rushed to Yi Ro's side, Meng Jianyu and Li Mo were both flying. "What do you want to say?" Yi Ro stared at Fang Yan and asked. Looking at the blue dress on Yi Ro, Fang Yan said happily, "Ahaha, I told you. You look good in a blue dress, and? You didn't hurt him, did you?" "He cursed you," Yi Ro said angrily. Meng Jianyu raised his head with difficulty, and shouted at the security guards who rushed over, "Call the police. Call the police. I want them dead, I want them to live a life worse than death. Call the police." When they walked out of the police station, it was already a little dark. Ruan Xian sent away the police chief who personally saw him off, and looked at Fang Yan and Yezi. Yi Ro laughed and said, "I often see you fight, but this is the first time I see you in the police station. Is it funny?" Yi Ro looked at Ruan Xian and asked expressionlessly. Ruan Xian was shocked, and quickly stopped laughing. He waved his hand and said, "It's not funny at all." Because of the relationship between Fang Yan and Yi Ro, the relationship between them and Yi Ro had improved. But Yi Ro was notorious, and if Yi Ro got angry, they would still be a little afraid. Seeing Wan Xian's fierce reaction, Yi Ro slightly raised the corner of her mouth and said, "It's quite funny." "Haha, ha ha ha." Wan Xian laughed while observing Yi Ro's expression. As long as the situation was slightly wrong, he would immediately change his style. He felt that his life was really too hard. He didn't know how Fang Yan could bear such a violent woman. Fang Yan and Yezi also laughed out loud. They didn't expect Yi Ro to have such an adorable behavior. Wan Xian also didn't want to live under Yi Ro's oppression. After laughing a few times, he looked at Yezi and said, "Boss asked me to pick you up. He asked you to go home for dinner tonight." "No need, no need." Fang Yan quickly waved his hand and said, "We're going to eat something outside." "I'm afraid not." Wan Xian insisted. "Boss said that we must have dinner at home tonight. He still has some things to deal with in the ministry, and he will go home after finishing them." Fang Yan hooked his arm around Wan Xian's neck and said in a low voice, "Brat, are you deliberately trying to ruin my plan?" "I have no choice." Wan Xian glanced at Yezi and said in a low voice, "Boss personally gave the order. I'm now begging for food under him, and I have to listen to him." Then, he raised his voice and put on an incorruptible look. "Make an exception? How can I make an exception for this kind of thing? As his secretary, I can only unconditionally execute the order given by our big boss. Besides, why do you need to make an exception for this kind of thing? Our big boss is inviting you home for dinner. This is the glory that many people want. How can you not appreciate it? Then you help me think of a way. I don't want to see that old fox, Yi Daoling, and I don't want my girlfriend to see him. What can I think of? You also saw that the boss's daughter is watching from the side. If I don't convey his meaning, he will talk to his father when I go back. Won't I be in trouble?" He raised his voice and said loudly, "Besides, it's rare for our boss to have time to go home for dinner. If the invited guest doesn't go, isn't it not giving our boss face? I advise you to go back with me. If our boss is angry, the consequences will be very serious." Yezi glanced at the scene in front of him and muttered, "These two idiots." Then he said loudly to Wan Xian, "Wan Xian, go back and tell my dad that I have an appointment with my classmates for dinner tonight, so I won't go back for dinner. My sister will accompany me." "What about Fang Yan?" Wan Xian asked. "Fang Yan? We haven't seen Fang Yan before," Yezi said. Wan Xian secretly gave a thumbs up to Fang Yan and said loudly, "Okay, miss, I will go back and report to the big boss." Yezi took the blame for herself, and Wan Xian naturally had no opinion. The big boss loved Yezi's daughter the most, so he probably wouldn't be too angry. After Wan Xian said goodbye to Fang Yan and Yi Ro, she drove away happily. They were very happy that Fang Yan and Yi Ro could be together. Of course, they were also happy that Fang Yan and Qin Tian were together. However, if Fang Yan was together with Yi Ro and Qin Tian, they would feel bad. They were both men with two legs. "Why?" Yezi looked at Fang Yan and said, "Are you satisfied now? What do you want to say?" Fang Yan said with a smile, "I don't understand," still pretending. Yezi's face was full of contempt. "Don't you want to sleep with my sister? Why don't you dare to say this kind of thing?" Chapter 728. Inside the police station, Meng Jinyu's face was swollen. He sat there looking like a volcano that was about to erupt. Li Mo's cheeks were red and swollen. She stood behind him, not daring to say a word. Today's matter, in the end, was caused by her. If it wasn't because she wanted to show off in front of her classmate, Yi Xinchen, that she had a rich husband, how could so many things happen later? She knew that Meng Jinyu had a belly full of anger that couldn't be vented, so it was best not to provoke him now. Li Mo really couldn't understand how things developed to this point. Wasn't it just a greeting between classmates? This wasn't the first time something like this happened, the police chief, Wei Xianqing, came back. When he saw Meng Jianyu sitting there, his face became gloomy, and he was about to walk right in front of them. Old Wei. Brother Wei. Meng Jianyu saw Wei Xianqing and quickly jumped up to stop him. Brother Wei, it's settled just like that? They hit me, and they just let him go. It's settled just like that? Wei Xianqing raised his eyebrows and looked at Meng Jianyu with an even more embarrassed expression. He said, Meng Jianyu, how do you think this matter should be settled? They hit me, there should be some punishment, right? Isn't that right? Then how do you think the punishment should be? Lock them up for a few days? There should be an apology, right? Let them go just like that. Look at my face, didn't they hit me for nothing? Meng Jianyu relied on the fact that he and Wei Xianqing were old acquaintances, so his tone was a bit casual. Lock them up for a few days? Let them apologize to you? Wei Xianqing's eyebrows jumped, and he said with a sneer, Meng Jianyu, you don't want to King live, don't drag me down with you. I know better than you what kind of person you are. How many cases have you left with me? How many times have I cleaned up your ass? But you can offend anyone, but you offended these big shots. Do you know that you King kicked an iron plate today? Not to mention that I can't protect you, even myself. As long as they don't let this matter go, one word and I will be kicked out of my current position. Do you know who you have offended? Do you know how much trouble you've caused? That's impossible, Liu Mo said with a look of surprise. Yi Xinchen, she's very ordinary. I've never heard of her family having any connections, and it's easy for her to get along with her classmates. Are you retarded? Who said that it's related to me to dress up like a hostess like you? Besides, do you think people of your level have the right to know about the relationship between their families? Brother Wei, who's your brother? Meng Jianyu, if you don't want to harm me, then don't call me brother. I can't take it. Chief Wei. Chief Wei. What kind of background does his family have? Can we finish him off? What kind of background? Wei Xianqing sneered and said, you better not know. I'm just afraid that your small back won't be able to take it. They're still outside and haven't left. If I were you, I'd quickly run out and apologize to them, and try my best to smooth this matter over. When they take revenge, I'm afraid you won't even know how you died. Don't you just want to sleep with my sister? Why can't you say it out loud? Fang Yan's face changed and said, how can you think of me like that? I want to sleep with your sister, but that's to protect her. You saw it just now. That person is very powerful. Your sister beat him up like this. What if he calls for revenge at night? Yi sneered and said, does my sister still need your protection? You don't know the situation. Fang Yan said with a serious face, your sister's body hasn't fully recovered from last time's injury. She jumped so high this time and used her body's true qi. Her body is extremely tired. If I can't stay by her side, her situation will be very dangerous. Fang Yan thought for a moment and added, I also have to transfer true qi to her at any time to prevent her internal breathing from becoming chaotic and damaging her dantian and sea of qi. Do you know what kind of bad effects a damaged dantian and sea of qi will have on us martial artists? Yi shook her head and then nodded. Although she didn't practice martial arts, she was born in an ancient martial arts family and had some basic knowledge of some martial arts. She will die, Fang Yan said in a low voice. Do you think I should sleep with your sister? I know you're lying to me. Yi looked at Yi Ro with uncertainty and said, my sister looks good. Fang Yan shook his head and said, your sister. She's too headstrong. Her body is so fragile, but she still pretends not to let you worry about her. Do you know how many times she secretly shed tears these days? Yi punched out and scolded angrily, Fang Yan, you idiot. My sister doesn't cry at all. Really? Fang Yan dodged Ye's attack neatly and said with a smile, how can a woman not cry? My sister doesn't, Yi said proudly. I've never seen my sister cry, that's because she doesn't want outsiders to see her inner weakness, Fang Yan retorted. He walked to Yi Ro and looked at her lovingly and said, let's go eat first. Then I'll buy you some clothes. Just now when Yi Ro was trying on clothes, there was such a conflict. In the end, Yi Ro kicked and ended the farce that made people not know whether to laugh or cry. However, the shop called the police. Fang Yan, Yi Ro, and Yi Ro were taken to the police station for interrogation. Although Yi Ro called his father Yi Daoling on the way, and his father immediately sent his secretary Wan Xian to deal with it. However, time was still delayed, and Yi Ro couldn't buy a suitable dress. Yi Ro nodded and said, okay. When the three were about to stop a car and leave, Meng Jianyu and Li Mo ran out of the police station. Meng Jianyu quickly ran to Fang Yan and shouted, Mr. Fang. Mr. Fang. Fang Yan looked coldly at the culprit who delayed their time and affected their mood and said, what? You want revenge now? If you want revenge, bring people here tonight. Bring more people. Yi Ro looked at Fang Yan as if she was looking at an idiot. She thought that this guy would really do anything to sleep with his cousin. No, Mr. Fang, you misunderstood. Meng Jianyu waved his hand and said, Mr. Fang, I didn't mean that. I didn't think about revenge. After Director Wei's education, I deeply realized my mistake. I'm here to apologize to you. I drank some wine today and did some stupid things. I'm regretting it now. Mr. Fang, please forgive me this time. I won't make such a mistake again in the future. Okay? He reached out to pull Li Mo to the front and said, Li Mo and Miss Yi are classmates. This is really a case of water rushing against the temple of the Dragon King, one family fighting another. Little Mo, you should also apologize to Miss Yi. This matter is all on us. Li Mo looked at Yi Ro strangely, as if it was the first day she met her. This girl who dressed in ordinary clothes, did things in an imposing manner, and got along well with her classmates in the class. Yi Xinshan, who was even secretly called a female loser, actually had such a terrifying identity. Even her husband. Even a guy like Meng Jinyu couldn't suppress her. She had such a powerful identity and background, why was she so low-key? Li Mo. Meng Jianyu was a little impatient and said in a low voice, quickly apologized to Miss Yi. Li Mo tried to squeeze out a stiff smile, looked at Yi Ro and said, Xinshan, what happened today is my fault. I caused trouble and deliberately wanted to anger you. You are a magnanimous person, don't lower yourself to my level. Yi Ro looked at her coldly and said nothing. She knew that she was not truly repentant. Bullying the weak and fearing the strong was a cancer that grew in her bones. To such a person, to a person who was not even a friend, what was there to say? Words like forgive should only be said to people who care about you, right? Seeing Li Mo apologize, Meng Jinyu's expression softened a little. He looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, Mr. Fang, this matter is over? Fang Yan squinted at him and said, are you afraid of our revenge? No. Why would I? How could a person like Mr. Fang lower himself to the level of a nobody like me? Isn't that right? Meng Jianyu said and laughed. Fang Yan did not laugh. He looked at him seriously and said, why wouldn't I lower myself to the level of a nobody like you? The big shots bully me because they think I'm weaker than them. You bullied me before because you also think we are weaker than you. Now that you realize that the situation is not right, that you have hurt yourself from kicking yourself, and then you boast that you are a nobody, I hope that we, who are big shots in your heart, will not lower ourselves to your level. Mr. Fang, that's not what I meant. I can compensate. When you bully others, you're arrogant and willful, but you don't give up on bullying me just because I'm a nobody. Instead, you look down on me even more. You're like a vicious dog. When you're young, you can only bully animals that are weaker than you. When you grow up to be a strong dog, you'll bully even more animals that are weaker than you. You won't become kind and restrained just because you're strong. Instead, you'll become even crazier and more savage. Mr. Fang, this is really a misunderstanding. so, why should I give you a chance to become a stronger dog? Fang Yan looked at him with a smile and said, go back. When you go back, you will find that you have become nothing. Chapter 729. Xiao Jiangnan. It was the most popular Hangzhou cuisine in Yanjing. Yi Rou liked to eat light food, so Fang Yan chose this place for dinner. At the dinner table, Yi Rou looked at Fang Yan with a puzzled face and said, are you really going to make Meng Jinyu lose everything? A man should keep his word. Fang Yan leaned over to Yi Rou and studied the menu with her. He said, if you say you want to kill his whole family, you must kill his whole family. If you say you want to make him bankrupt, you must make him bankrupt. Don't order the braised pork. It's too greasy. The bamboo fish here is good, and the fish soup is very delicious. I think you will like it. What are you going to do? Yi Rou was very curious about this kind of thing. For a big shot like me, it's as easy as killing an ant if I want to take revenge on someone. I can do it by just making a phone call. Fang Yan bragged shamelessly. Are you going to call Lu Chaoga? Yi Rou asked aloud. Or Qinitian? Both of them have the ability to do that. Because Fang Yan and Lu Chaoga had a close relationship with Qinitian, Yi Rou was particularly displeased about this. She thought Fang Yan was a scumbag who played around with girls. Fang Yan said without raising his head, why do I have to call them? I can call Lu Shulan Valley. Fang Yan did call Lan Shulan Valley. He believed that Lan Shulan Valley would understand what he meant and solve the problem neatly. He also hesitated to let Lu Shu handle this matter, but Lu Shu's means were dirtier and more vicious. It would hurt the harmony of the world. In the end, he still gave Meng Jinyu a chance to live. Lan Shulan Valley and Lu Shu were his partners and also two of his capable men. Their characters were both extreme. One seemed to be generous, but in fact, he was good at moderation. He could easily wander between the Lan family and himself, and he was a rare handsome man. Lu Shu's temperament had changed greatly. He looked gloomy but was cruel in his bones. If he hardened his heart to deal with someone, that person would probably be in a state where they could neither live nor die. But the people you really trust are Lu Chaoga and Qinitian. Men will naturally believe in women who treat them well. Then shouldn't I trust your sister even more? Fang Yan ordered 2 more snacks and told the waiter to place the order. He looked at Yezi and said, why don't you ask your sister to kill Meng Jinyu and his little lover? Do you have a bad relationship with people in school? Why are even your classmates targeting you? When I was teaching in school, both teachers and students liked me very much. I was the school idol of Rosefinch Secondary. Keep bragging. Yi sneered and said, many people didn't like you when you went there just now, right? Also, don't think I didn't notice that you were deliberately changing the topic. How is this possible? Fang Yan immediately retorted, when I just went there, they just didn't know me, so they didn't like me. When they know what kind of person I am. I want to hit you. Yi interrupted Fang Yan's bragging and said, I know everything about you. My father has your information on his desk. Fang Yan looked at Yi Rou and said with a smile, you see, your family is still investigating me. They want to see if I'm qualified as a son-in-law. Then he looked at Yi and asked, did they give me a score? How many did they give? It is said that children from rich families will give scores to all their suitors. The one with the highest score will have a chance to win. I don't know whether they gave you a score or not. But it is true that they don't want you to be with my sister. Fang Yan squinted his eyes and smiled, saying, we will definitely be together. Are you so sure? Yi Rou also turned to look at Fang Yan and stared at his eyes with her big shining eyes without blinking. She meant to ask, how can you be so sure? Because the mountains are no longer as sharp as the sky and earth. That's why I dare to say goodbye to you. They didn't drink in the evening. After dinner, Fang Yan took the 2 girls shopping for clothes. Because of the unpleasant things that happened in the afternoon, the three of them were too embarrassed to go to that brand store again. Instead, they went to another shopping mall, to another world-famous brand store. Yi-Ro didn't have many styles of clothes, and most of them were plain. Encouraged by Fang Yan and Yi-Ro chose several brightly colored clothes. It had to be said that Yi-Ro's temperament was out of this world. No matter what she wore, she had a different kind of beauty. Fang Yan was happy to see some changes made by his girlfriend. Fang Yan saw a sexy black pajamas in the underwear area. Seeing that Yi was trying on shoes, he quietly pulled Yi-Ro over and pointed at the pajamas, saying, "I think this one suits you very well." Yi-Ro held the almost weightless black silk pajamas in her hand and asked, "Do you really think this one suits me?" "I think it's quite good." Fang Yan said seriously, "And you didn't bring your pajamas this time. You need to buy a pajamas. Otherwise, what will you wear at night?" Yi-Ro nodded and said, "Since you think it suits me, then buy it." Okay, I'll pay for it." Fang Yan nodded excitedly and said, "It looks more suitable for you, doesn't it?" Yi-Ro whispered behind him. "How come?" Fang Yan was scared and quickly denied, saying, "This one is too small for me to wear." When they came out of the shopping mall, the whole city was brightly lit and had entered the carnival season that night. Yi-Ro held Yi-Ro's hand and refused to let go, saying that she would take her to meet her friends. Fang Yan held Yi-Ro's hand again and refused to let go, saying that he would go wherever Yi-Ro went. So, the three of them took a car together to a club called Elegant Gentlemen. Yi-Ro was obviously a regular here. When they arrived at the door, someone greeted them. The receptionist in a red Han costume seemed to be familiar with Yi-Ro. She said with a smile, "Miss Yi, Child Shen and others are waiting for you at the Butterfly Loves Flower House." Yi-Ro nodded and explained to Yi-Ro beside her, "Chen Feng is a guy from our academy. His father works in the Ministry of Finance." Yi-Ro nodded, as if she remembered Chen Feng's identity and didn't care about these things at all. This elegant gentleman's club was built in the classical Huaxia style. It was mainly made of wood and decorated with halls, terraces, pavilions, rockeries, and stones. The waiters inside all wore long robes with wide sleeves, looking like a relic of the Wei and Jin dynasties. The fragrance of tea permeated the air and the music was pleasant. It looked like a very elegant place indeed. Nowadays, people in the city were interested in novelty. Some places that were nostalgic or full of primitive and wild flavor were popular and sought after. For example, the beast hunting garden and here. The waitress did not take Fang Yan and others to the box first. Instead, she took them to a very secluded place to change clothes. Fang Yan looked at Yi-Ro with a puzzled face. Yi-Ro said, "Just listen to her arrangement." Fang Yan was taken to a separate locker room. The beautiful waitress said with a smile, "Sir, do you need to take a bath first?" "No need." Fang Yan stared at her vigilantly and said, "What do you mean?" "I tell you, don't have any bad ideas about me. I came with my girlfriend. The one in black just now is my girlfriend. She is good at fighting." "Sir, you misunderstood. This is a formal place." The waitress explained with a smile, "The reason I asked you to take a bath first is that you can better feel the smell of incense later." "Incense? Sir, aren't you here to eat?" "Eat?" Fang Yan thought about it and said, "Okay. I'll listen to your arrangement. I'll take a bath first." Fang Yan went into the bathroom to take a bath. When he came out, the waitress had prepared a white Han costume for him. Fang Yan felt a little strange in this dress, but he was not unfamiliar with this style. Because Swallow Dock was originally a special place with a strong traditional style. Fang Yan put on his clothes and the waitress helped him tie his belt. She said, "Sir, please come with me." Led by the waitress, they walked toward the small buildings in the backyard. At the door of a small building with a butterfly falling in love with flowers hanging on the door, the waitress knocked on the door, and there was laughter coming from inside. "It must be Yi-Ro." Yi-Ro said she would bring her sister over. Her sister is also a beautiful woman. "Brothers, please give in," creak, the wooden door was pushed open from the inside, and a man in a black Han costume stood at the door with a smile on his face. He opened his mouth to speak, but when he saw Fang Yen behind the waitress, the smile on his face instantly froze. He looked at Fang Yen and asked, "Who are you looking for?" Fang Yen looked at him with a smile and said, "Are you a friend of Yi Ro?" "Yes." "Who are you?" The man stared at Fang Yen more vigilantly. "I am Yi Ro's brother-in-law," Fang Yen said with a smile. "Her sister is my wife. They went to change clothes and haven't come back yet, right? Yi Ro asked me to come over first and get to know you." The man hesitated for a moment, moved aside and said, "Since you are Yi Ro's brother-in-law, please come in." "Thank you," Fang Yen said with a smile. He walked barefoot into the wooden house, where more than a dozen people were sitting on the ground. There were men and women among them, and they all looked very young. Tea was brewed on the tea table, and 2 sticks of incense were lit in a copper censer on the table. This kind of fragrance was elegant and fragrant, but not strong enough to make people dizzy. It smelled good spices. Outside, some invisible rich people liked to eat fragrance, and good spices were hard to find. There was even a saying that 1 ounce of agarwood was worth 100 ounces of gold. However, the arrival of Fang Yen suddenly broke the lively atmosphere of the scene. Everyone looked at the intruder with a strange expression. Chapter 730. You could never wake up a person who pretended to be asleep, and you could never defeat a thick-skinned person. After Fang Yen sat down, everyone's eyes were fixed on him. No one was familiar with him, and they didn't know what to say when they met him for the first time. They could only look at each other in awkward silence. Fang Yen looked indifferent. He picked up the teacup in front of him and carefully tasted the high-quality De Hong Pao tea. Anyway, he was just an accompanying guest, an inconspicuous but important green leaf beside Yi Wen and Yi Wen-ro. This was his position in his heart. Chen Feng was Ye's pursuer and the organizer of this party. Although he didn't like Fang Yen, he also knew that since this person was brought here by Yi, he was naturally valued by Yi. If he had a close relationship with Yi, thinking that he might have a close relationship with Yi, Chen Feng didn't have a good impression of Fang Yen. Brother-in-law? Brother-in-law? So what? How did that sentence come about? Wasn't a sister-in-law the intimate little cotton-padded jacket of a brother-in-law? However, he still had to put on a good show. Chen Feng looked at Fang Yen and asked with a smile, "Sir, what's your name?" "Fang," Fang Yen said with a smile. "Oh. Mr. Fang, are you really Ye's brother-in-law?" "Yes." Fang Yen nodded with absolute certainty. Ye's sister was Yi Wen-ro. If he wasn't her brother-in-law, who else could be her brother-in-law? "I've long heard from Yi that she has a beautiful sister who is as beautiful as a fairy, but we haven't had the chance to meet her. This time she said she would bring her sister to Yanjing for a trip, so we wanted to do our duty as hosts." Chen Feng had a square face and looked a little serious when he wasn't smiling. But when he smiled, he looked kind and honest. From his face, he didn't look like a treacherous person. He pointed to the 2 young men who were also wearing long robes sitting opposite him and said with a smile, "Zhang Quan and Li Weiguo wanted to perform well tonight, and maybe they would have a chance to win the beauty's heart, but they didn't expect that the beauty already has a boyfriend. Speaking of which, it really makes me sigh." Li Weiguo had a delicate face and looked gentle. He was drinking tea with a teacup in his hand. After hearing Chen Feng's words, he pretended to be angry and retorted, "Chen Feng, your words are biased. In this room, only Zhang Quan and I want to win the beauty's heart?" Before Yi and the others came, who was the one who wanted to perform well? Chen Feng laughed and said, "Didn't you say you two were the loudest?" Chen Feng and said, "Are you?" Li Weiguo looked at Fang Yen and asked, "What do you do, Mr. Fang?" Fang Yen thought for a bit, then said, "I used to be a teacher, heh." Li Weiguo grinned and said, "So it's teacher." "It's a good job, the future of our country is in your hands," Li Weiguo said. This job is good, but the contempt in his eyes was not concealed. No matter how much they wanted their children to hide their strengths and bide their time, they would not let them become teachers. Those without talent could not do it, and those with talent would not want to be trapped in a 3-foot platform. Therefore, from Fang Yan's profession, it could be concluded that this guy had no background or money. Since Fang Yan's identity had been classified, the people at the scene talked freely and unscrupulously. "Mr. Fang, is this your first time here?" Zhang Quan asked with a smile. It was said that Fatso had a lot of tricks. Although Fatso smiled innocently, his hidden shrewdness could still be seen through his flickering eyes. "This is my first time." Fang Yan nodded frankly and said to the people present with a proud look, "If it wasn't for your invitation, I wouldn't have known there was such a good place in Yanjing. Most of the buildings here are in the style of the Wei and Jin dynasties. Although there are some changes, it doesn't affect the overall atmosphere here. This place is different from other clubs. We don't drink or sing, and we don't ask for hostesses. Everyone bathes in incense and gathers. There are also poetry gatherings where some eminent monks and famous scholars are invited to give lectures. Of course, this is only possible if you are lucky enough to meet them," Chen Feng explained with a smile. "There are exceptions," Zhang Quan said with a teacup in his hand. "If you are a member of the Elegant Club, you can receive an invitation in advance. Mr. Fang, do you want to apply for a membership card here? The price is not expensive. It only costs more than 300,000 yuan a year." Chen Feng and Mr. Zhong of the Elegant Club are old friends. "If he helps you to greet them, you can get a discount." Fang Yan waved his hand and said, "Thank you for your kindness. I rarely use incense. It's fine to feel it occasionally. You don't want to apply for a membership card? Of course, you don't have money. Feeling it occasionally is fine. That's shamelessly asking for incense." For parties like theirs, sometimes they bought the incense from the club, and sometimes they brought it for themselves. A freeloader like Fang Yan was looked down upon by others. Of course, because of the relationship between Fang Yan and Yi, they naturally wouldn't attack Fang Yan for being poor. How could they talk about money? If they talked about money, they would appear to have no quality and style, but they could attack Fang Yan for being uncultured. They wanted to use their profound knowledge to conquer Fang Yan. They wanted him to clearly understand the gap between them and himself. They wanted him to be ashamed of himself and to not show his face. So, Li Weigua suppressed his excitement and asked a very stupid question, "Mr. Fang, did you use incense before?" Fang Yan held the teacup and carefully looked at Li Weigua's expression. It seemed that he was thinking about something very important. After a long time, he nodded and said, "I used incense." "That's great." Li Weigua applauded and laughed, saying, "I didn't expect to meet a kindred spirit today." Li Weigua pointed to the copper incense burner in the middle of the table that was emitting pale white smoke and asked, "Mr. Fang, do you know what incense is burning in this burner?" Yi and Yi Ro also changed into wide robes with big sleeves. Yi Ro chose plain white. White and black were her favorite colors. Yi chose cyan, like the weeds in spring, looking full of youth and very bright and lovely. Yi looked at Yi Ro in the white robe and couldn't help but praise her, saying, "Sister, you look so beautiful in the Han costume, just like a fairy." Yi Ro smiled silently. She was very fond of her sister. She touched her sister's hair and said, "How can there be a fairy in the world?" "You are." Yezi said proudly, "I heard from my father that if you succeed this time, you will become a fairy." "Sister, although I don't know what the way of heaven is, it must be something great to make my father and my uncles so excited. You have always been the most powerful. Not only in our Yi family, but also in Swallow Dock. You are very powerful in the whole Huaxia." Yi Ro thought for a moment and said, "Fang Yan is also very powerful, sister." Yi Ro complained. "Do you like to speak up for him so much? How is he powerful? How can he be compared with you? He is really powerful." Yi Ro pulled Yi Ro to sit down on the rattan chair and said seriously, "Do you know he has the heart of Tai Chi?" "Yes." Yi Ro nodded. "So what? Didn't you still beat him black and blue like a pig?" Yes, this was Yi Rou's understanding of Fang Yan. Not only Yi Rou, but many others also thought that Fang Yan's kung fu was just a so-so, the heart of Tai Chi. The name sounded powerful, but he was still beaten black and blue by Yi Rou. In this way, it proved that the heart of Tai Chi was actually a fake product, which was deliberately mystifying by the Fangs. However, they had never seriously thought that Fang Yan's opponent was Yi Rou, who was known as the once-in-a-century genius of Swallow Dock. Because Yi Rou was so powerful, it seemed that Fang Yan was not powerful at all. He is better than me, Yi Rou said softly. She was not used to talking to people loudly. Even the people closest to her talked to her in a flat and expressionless manner. However, this was her unique style. A kind of domineering and cold personality. Tai Chi has a heart. This is the consensus of all the people in the inner Jianghu who practice Tai Chi hard. Think about it, how many people learn Tai Chi? There must be hundreds of thousands of people in the world, right? But think about it again, how many people among hundreds of thousands of people understand the heart of Tai Chi? And at Fang Yan's age, how many of them are there? Yi Rou widened her eyes and said, so powerful? But, I know. You want to say that he was defeated by me every time we competed, and he even ran away. It was really shameful. Yi Rou rarely interrupted others and said, Tai Chi is about letting nature take its course and follow the heart. But what was Fang Yan's heart? At that time, he couldn't find his heart at all, but I know that his heart was not as simple as defeating me. What was the point of defeating me? What was the point of defeating a woman? Just like Bai Xiu was always unwilling to fight with me, Fang Yan also thought that it was not necessary to fight with a woman until both of them were defeated. Humph, Yi Rou sneered and said, those annoying guys. So what if she was a woman? They couldn't defeat a woman, damn the sand pig doctrine. So, at that time, Fang Yan had been holding back. Yi Rou lowered her voice, and even her eyes became extremely soft. I hit him hard again and again to force him to use his full strength, but he still didn't do his best. Yi Rou was surprised and said in a low voice, so, Fang Yan had already started to hit on you at that time. He did it early. Chapter 731. This person is too scheming. Yi Rou drew such a conclusion from Yi Rou's story and said angrily, I couldn't see it before. I thought he always opposed you because he didn't like you. Now I know that everything he did was to attract your attention. Sister, why is this guy so scheming? How old was he at that time? He only knew how to pick up girls? Yi Rou didn't expect that Yi would have a different understanding of Fang Yan after she explained the situation in the past to Fang Yan. Anyway, in her eyes, Fang Yan was not a good person, but you were already very beautiful at that time. There are many boys in Swallow Fort who like you. It's just that you don't care about them. That Fang Yan is always glaring at you, picking on you whenever there's a problem, looking for trouble whenever there's a problem. Instead, he keeps loitering in front of you. Humph, this method of picking up girls is so old-fashioned. I didn't expect it to be so effective. At that time, Fang Yan didn't like me, Yi Rou said aloud. Why didn't he like you? Why didn't he like you? Yi Rou said angrily. After a pause, she gritted her teeth and said, I know, the person he liked at that time was Phoenix. What's so good about that woman in Yushao? She's not as beautiful as you. Yi Rou shook her head and said, everyone has their own eyes when it comes to liking. How can there be a standard? There is. Yi Rou said proudly. She pointed to her little face and said, everyone likes me, that's because you're cute, Yi Rou said. I'm cold and always like to hit people, sister, do you know? You're the cutest when you're cold and hitting people. When you and Fang Yan competed in martial arts, would be there as long as there was a chance. That's because I think you're the coolest when you beat Fang Yan until he begs for mercy. You're so cool. Even if he knows the heart of Tai Chi, it doesn't prove that Fang Yan is better than you. Yi Rou insisted on her point of view and said, sister almost succeeded in climbing the heavenly law. Why didn't he? It proves that he's still not as good as you. He had the heart of Tai Chi at a young age and was already the best disciple of Tai Chi because of his father's death. He observed mourning for 3 years. After he went out, he comprehended the light of Taiji. Only with benevolence and compassion could one have the heart of Taiji. He had the spirit of justice and selflessness and was the best disciple of Tai Chi. He had the light of righteousness and was the best disciple of Tai Chi. This was a principle that all martial artists understood. His heart wasn't bad, but his mouth was too poisonous, which always made people forget about his true nature. Think about it, when did he really hurt anyone? Even when the Fong clan was bullied to that extent a few years ago, after he obtained the Taiji heart, when did he ever find trouble with others? Father died tragically. If this happened to anyone else. Apart from Bai Xiu, Li Xiaotian, Zhu Zaidan, and the others from Swallow Dock are all outstanding people, but if they were to suffer such a blow, would they still be able to keep their minds clear? Ro, Yi, Tai, can they do better than Fong Yen? Yuan Ro sighed softly, her voice filled with deep pity as she said, he has an enemy in Hua City, and an enemy of the country in Yanjing. He has to face a colossus like the Jiang family, and because of Senior Mo, he even has to face the pressure of the divine dragon. Every step he takes is like walking on thin ice, it's really not easy. If it was another man, would he have the time to go shopping with you? He still has the mood to joke around with you? Up until now, he still maintains his innocence and smiles. Such a man, I'm afraid it's hard to find in this world, right? Yezi was in a daze for a long time and said, Fong Yen did not have it easy, especially during the years when his father was killed. He seemed to have changed into another person. I don't know what's going on, but when I saw his cheeky smile, he suddenly stopped smiling. It makes me feel very uncomfortable. Seeing that Yi Ro was lost in her own thoughts, Yi pulled Yi Ro's sleeve and said, Sister, are you really going to marry him? Yi Ro looked at Yi Ro in confusion, not understanding why she asked such a question. I always feel that you can look around, Yi Ro said with a serious face. Sister, you don't go out often, so you have less contact with men. I think there are many men out there, very good men. Men who are not as good as Fong Yen. You should look around and choose more. A woman's marriage is a lifetime event. Uncle and the others don't want you two to get married, and there are many obstacles in between. Even if it's difficult to get together in the future, some people will always be hurt. Wouldn't it be better if you can have the best of both worlds? Yi Ro looked at Yi Ro and asked, have you ever really liked someone? Yi Ro nodded and said with a blush, have you? Didn't I tell you? When I was in junior high, there was a boy in my class who was very handsome when he played basketball. Have you ever loved someone? Love? Yi Ro's expression was a little confused. What kind of feeling could be called love? If you are willing to live and die with someone for the rest of your life, you won't feel bored. Yi Ro said. Except for him, no one else can. That's the kind of feeling. Yi Ro shook her head and said, not yet. I'm not even sure what kind of man I will find. Except for him, no one else can. Yi Ro's voice was still calm, but her tone was unquestionable. If he asks me to marry him, I will say yes without hesitation. So, I will marry him. Yi Ro was silent for a moment, fiddled with her hair and said, forget it, that's between you two. Why do you explain so much to me? Yi Ro looked at Yi Ro and said, I understand your intention. You arranged such a gathering to let me see more men, to see some other outstanding men in Yanjing. But, my eyes can no longer contain other men. I won't even look at them. Yi Ro smiled bitterly and said, I know I can't hide it from you. My dad asked me to do this and take you to see more people. I don't want to. I understand. Yi Ro nodded. She wanted to believe Yi Ro's explanation, and she also knew that there were other elders' thoughts in it. However, since she fell in love with that man, nothing was more important than this. Oh no, Yi Ro suddenly exclaimed. What's wrong? Let's go and have a look. Yi Ro jumped up and pulled Yi Ro out. What happened? I hinted to Chen Feng and others to embarrass Fang Yan. I don't know how badly they have bullied Fang Yan now, Yi Ro said anxiously. Yi Ro didn't worry at all after hearing Yi Ro's words. She was still pulled by her sleeves and walked quickly, but she looked calm and said, "It'll be fine." What about them? Yi Ro smiled slightly. She didn't believe that anyone could bully Fang Yan. They walked quickly and came to the Butterfly Loves Flowers box under the guidance of the waiter. As soon as they arrived at the door of the box, they heard Fang Yan's voice coming through the wooden doors and windows. The heart of wood is placed in the water. Those that can sink in the water are called agarwood, and those that can sink with the water are also known as water sinks. Those that are half sunk are called plank incense. Those that are not sunk are called yellow ripe incense. It's recorded in the Compendium of Materia Medica, not by me. The most precious agarwood is agarwood, which is also divided into different grades. Japanese subdivided into 5 grades, such as white agarwood, red agarwood, yellow agarwood, purple agarwood, black agarwood, and many other names. Agarwood is often not available for money nowadays. It is said that the grade of agarwood is based on the comfort of the taste, and white agarwood is the highest. Of course, I haven't tasted this kind of white agarwood before. The most used one is purple agarwood. After agarwood is red earth agarwood. Those that grew in yellow-colored yellow soil were called yellow soil agarwood, those that grew in red-colored red soil were called red soil agarwood, and those that grew in brownish-black soil were called black soil agarwood. What was burning in the copper stove should be red soil agarwood. If I'm not wrong, it should be the relatively rare red earth agarwood. Which place has the best red earth agarwood? Someone asked aloud. It could be heard that the voice of the person who asked the question was very humble. It seemed that he had accepted Fang Yan's identity as a fake expert. The red earth agarwood of Phu Sen in Vietnam is the highest grade, just like the wine of the Bordeaux region. It has a symbolic meaning. When we drink outside, when we hear that it is the red wine of the Bordeaux region, we all feel that it is a grade higher than other wines. The grade of red earth agarwood is determined by age. For example, the quality of the same material buried in the soil for 100 years and 200 years is different. The higher the value, the better. The longer it is buried in the soil, the original softwood parts will be eroded by soil organic matter and the remaining immortal essence will be lost. Thus, a fundamental change will occur. The aroma will become stronger without the smell of wood. If it is buried for a long time, the surface will crack. This is what people in the industry call carbonization. This kind of agarwood is the best and the most expensive. It is difficult for us small people to see it, but it is not a rare item for everyone here. After Fang Yan finished speaking, it was the peak of the people's questions. Mr. Fang, what do you think of the soft silk agarwood? Mr. Fang, do you have any precious collections? Can you let us broaden our horizons? Don't ask. Let Mr. Fang drink some water to moisten his throat. What happened? It sounds different from what I imagined. Didn't we agree to let these people embarrass Fang Yan? How come they all become his fans in a short time? You're more knowledgeable than me. There was a smile at the corner of Yi Wen's mouth. Ye's expression was stiff. She looked at Yi Ro, opened the wooden door and walked in. Chapter 732. One was dressed in snow-white clothes, elegant and charming, like a fairy from heaven. The other was young and charming, like a beautiful girl next door. Yi Ro and Yezi, the pair of sisters, walked in side by side and immediately attracted the attention of all the men in the room. A fair lady was a gentleman's match. Even if they couldn't wait for it, they could look at them for free. Even the eyes of the only 2 women in the room were bright and gloomy, as if they were ashamed of their inferiority. Staying in the same room with such women, how could any man notice their existence? Yezi looked at the people in the room with a sweet smile and said, "What are you talking about with Fang Yan? It seems that you are having a good chat." Fang Yan? Hearing this name, many people in the room were moved. They only regarded this young man as Yezi's brother-in-law and only knew that his surname was Fong. For the sake of Yezi, they also called him Mr. Fong. Later, they learned that he was knowledgeable and knew all kinds of spices that they were obsessed with. Even Li Weigua, who was the most proficient in them, had to admit that he was inferior to him. However, in their eyes, this man was just a teacher, or a knowledgeable teacher who knew some techniques of agarwood and talked calmly and admiringly. No matter how excellent he was, no matter how extraordinary he was still a teacher. No matter how excellent a teacher was, what was he in the eyes of these people? If they valued you, it was because they were courteous and virtuous. If they looked down on you, it was because they were arrogant and disdainful. However, if the person sitting in front of them was Fong Yan, the weight would not be the same. Is he the famous Fong Yan who defeated Jiang Junling in Huacheng? Is he the Fong Yan who forced the Jiang family to expel Jiang Junling? Is he the Fong Yan who had an affair with Qi Nitian? Qi Nitian is the most beautiful woman in Yanjing. Zhang Quan, what are you talking about? It's true that Qi Nitian is beautiful, but there are two beauties standing in front of us. They are no less beautiful than Qi Nitian. Everyone asked questions one after another, and everyone's eyes shifted to Fong Yan. Previously, their gazes were also on Fong Yan, but the way they looked at him then was completely different from the way they looked at him now. Watch? Just like the singers on the stage, or the clowns on the stage of an acrobatic troupe, they would occasionally go to watch, and they would even be willing to drink with one or two of the big stars, but when it came to deep friendship, how was that possible? Paying attention to him was different. You had to pay attention to him, pay attention to his every word and action, and even think about how to respond to him. If Fong Yan was the Fong Yan they were talking about, then all the young masters and ladies in this room should give Fong Yan the appropriate treatment. He would be treated in a manner befitting of his reputation, abilities, and resources. This was class. Yi Ro looked indignant. Not only did they change his script without permission, but they all behaved like this after hearing his name. Are you still young masters who take a few lackeys to flirt with innocent women? Yi Ro looked calm and indifferent, but her eyes were fixed on Fong Yan's face from beginning to end. Even if her eyes occasionally moved to other places, her mind was still on Fong Yan. As she said, since she fell in love with Fong Yan, she would not look at other men. She liked this state. She liked people to pay attention and respect to Fong Yan. It was not that she was vain. She just thought, if others treated Fong Yan like this, it would prove that her husband was excellent and powerful. Well, okay, she was still a little vain. She liked to see Fong Yan being looked at like that. She did not want the man she liked to be despised and looked down upon, which was even more unacceptable than being despised and looked down upon herself. In fact, with her current state of mind, she did not care about being despised and looked down upon. Fong Yan squinted his eyes and smiled. Looking at Chen Feng and the others in front of him, he cupped his hands and said, I'm Fong Yan, Fong, as in square, Yan, as in 2 fires. I do have some conflicts with Jiang Junling, and Qi Nitian can be considered as my old acquaintance. However, he is not as powerful as you said. He is just a poor man who was bullied by a woman and moved to Huacheng to be a teacher. Hearing Fong Yan's self-mockery, everyone present burst into laughter. Yi Ro blushed. Obviously, she did not expect that Fong Yan would make fun of her. However, she felt sweet in her heart. Because Fong Yan had closely connected her with him, she was the heroine of this incident, she really liked this feeling. Was this what it meant to be in love? Since there was no point of reference, she couldn't tell. However, she liked this feeling. She was very satisfied. Although everyone was smiling on the surface, waves were surging in their hearts. Indeed, this Fong Yan was the Fong Yan they were talking about. This Fong Yan had dealt with the 4 young masters of Huacheng, who were rather famous in Beijing. It was said that the Lanshan Valley, which was based in Beijing, had become his loyal supporter. The Huacheng's lover, Lu Shu, had become a mad dog beside him. The Jiang family was the most miserable. Not only had their family been destroyed, even Jiang Zhulu, the most famous of the four geniuses, had become a prisoner, even if these people's status and background far surpassed the current Fang Yan, who would be willing to be enemies with such a guy with such a glorious battle record. Chen Feng was a free and easy person. Moreover, he wanted to show off in front of Yi Rou. Hence, he took the initiative to apologize to Fang Yan. Although they didn't make things difficult for Fang Yan earlier, there was indeed a layer of enmity between them. For smart people like them, this kind of thing could be seen with a single glance. It was better for them to resolve it. Fang Yan waved his hand and said, "I'm just a small character with a small nose and small eyes. What's there to not recognize? We didn't know each other before, but now we know each other, right? We're all friends from now on." Because they heard that Fang Yan was the first to snatch Yi Rou's sister, Li Weiguo and Zhang Quan were the most hostile toward Fang Yan. Earlier, they were also the first to make things difficult for Fang Yan. Now that Chen Feng, who was the hidden leader among them, had apologized to Fang Yan, the two of them immediately followed suit. Li Weiguo personally carried the teapot to Fang Yan and said with a smile, "Brother Fang, I'll use tea in place of wine to toast you. Thank you for your guidance earlier. If there's a chance in the future, I'll treat you again to thank you." Fang Yan held the teacup with both hands and said with a smile, "Thank you so much, brotherly." Zhang Quan also looked at Fang Yan with a smile and said, "Brother Fang is a person who really understands incense. I still have a few boxes of good incense here. Although they're not as rare as agarwood, they're also the best red earth incense. You can take one box back to have a taste later. If you like it, I'll supply it all year round." The crowd shouted and asked why Fang Yan could supply it all year round, but they could only have one box each. Wasn't this too unfair? These young masters and ladies were all slick people. If they wanted to make friends with someone, they would naturally be happy and harmonious. Bathing and changing clothes, drinking tea and eating delicious food, chatting and then having a good sleep. Wouldn't that be great? Except for a few who had to go back, most people slept in this elegant club at night. Most of them were members of this elegant club. The club provided extremely comfortable and luxurious rooms for these members to rest in. Chen Feng walked to Yi and asked if they would stay at night. Yi hesitated, thinking that he would be nagged by his father if he went back. It was better to stay in this elegant club for one night than to get a room in a hotel. So he nodded and said, "We'll stay as well." Chen Feng asked someone to prepare 2 room cards and said, "These are the rooms prepared for you." Fang Yan took the room cards and gave one to Yi. He said, "You use one room. Your sister and I will share one room." Yi Rou's expression was slightly bitter, but she didn't say anything. Yi glared at Fang Yan fiercely, but she didn't expose the fact that Fang Yan and Yi Rou were just a couple in front of everyone. Other people wouldn't find anything wrong, because when Fang Yan entered the room, he introduced himself as, "I'm her brother-in-law." Everyone scattered to sleep. Fang Yan took Yi Rou's hand back to the room in front of everyone and said, "Let's go back to sleep." Yi Rou felt sweet in her heart when her little hand was held by Fang Yan. However, she also thought in her mind, men love their faces. Now I let him do whatever he wants. When everyone else is asleep, I will go to sleep with Yi. As the night grew darker, the backyard became quieter. After taking a bath, Yi sat alone in the pavilion in the yard and was lost in thought. Chen Feng, dressed in a white bathrobe, sat opposite the stone table with a bottle of red wine and 2 wine glasses in his hand. "Have a drink?" Chen Feng asked. "Let's have a drink," Yi answered. The red wine had already been opened. Chen Feng poured red wine into the 2 glasses and then handed one to Yi. He asked, "Is there something on your mind?" "Not really." Ye's eyes were empty. Obviously, she was still immersed in her own thoughts. Clang, Chen Feng touched Ye's glass with the one in his hand, took a mouthful of red wine, and said, "Isn't it too unethical of you to do this? You asked us to make trouble for him, but you didn't tell us his identity." Yi glanced at Chen Feng and said, "If I told you his identity in advance, would you still be willing to make trouble for him? Chen Feng thought about it seriously and said, although we are not afraid of him, why should we provoke such an enemy with such a great threat? You also know that even a freak like the general's decree fell in his hands. Such a person can't be a close friend, so it's better to stay away from him. That's it. Yi shrugged indifferently. Chen Feng looked at Yi and said, what are you confused about? I'm thinking about a problem. What problem? What is love? Chen Feng's eyes widened, and then his eyes became burning. He said, that is, no matter when we meet, we will be attracted to her again. Yi thought about it seriously, but in her mind, the tall and straight figure of Fang Yan standing up for her when Meng Jinyu pounced on her, the girl shook her head and threw the picture out of her mind. She said, this is really a troublesome thing. I still don't know what love is. Chen Feng's face instantly became incomparably complicated. I'm sitting right in front of you. Can't you raise your eyes and take a good look at me? Chapter 733. After entering the room, Fang Yan was at a loss of what to do. What should I do next? Push Yi Ro down? Isn't that too barbaric and reckless? I should take a shower first, right? But I have just taken a shower, and the fragrance on my body is quite nice. Besides, even if I push her down, what should I do next? Is it really so easy to let Yi Ro get my body and my virginity? Every man's first time is extremely precious, and it is the most important and sweet memory in their life. Isn't it too easy to lose it so easily? At the very least, even if the two of them really complete the great harmony of life. It is said that men's first time is very fast, and 9 out of 10 men will do it in a second. If I do it in a second, will Yi Ro laugh at me? Even if she doesn't show it on her face, she must despise me in her heart, right? Every time we spar, I always step on you. Now that I finally give you a chance to climb on top of me, you fall down so easily. Are you still a man? She must be thinking this in her heart. Thinking of this possibility, Fang Yan had a feeling that he would rather die than live. As a virgin, he really felt a lot of pressure. Fang Yan found the remote control and turned on the TV. The TV screen was showing Animal World, and 2 leopards were mating. Fang Yan grinned, but he soon restrained himself. She wouldn't think that I was hinting at something, would she? Fang Yan didn't want to appear too wretched, and he didn't want to change the channel. So he asked Yi Ro, what do you want to watch? Yi Ro walked to the living room and sat down, saying, anything. This question was too clever and perfunctory. It was useless to ask. Fang Yan put down the remote control, looked at Yi Ro, and said, let's talk for a while. Yi Ro looked at Fang Yan strangely, thinking, aren't we talking all the time? However, she still nodded obediently. Yi Ro had a cold personality and didn't like to talk. Moreover, if someone touched her bottom line, she wouldn't hesitate to punish them severely. But when she was alone with Fang Yan, her docility and obedience could melt anyone's heart. Fang Yan sat down beside Yi Ro. He thought for a moment and moved closer to her. After some thought, he moved closer. When their bodies were close to each other, he could feel the softness of Yi Ro's body and smell the fragrance of Yi Ro's breath. He couldn't help holding Yi Ro in his arms and covering her mouth with his. He thought it was more direct to communicate in this way. Besides, this wasn't the first time they had come into contact with each other. Yi Ro's lips were soft and her tongue was sweet. Although she wouldn't respond too intensely when kissing, she wouldn't bite off Fang Yan's tongue like the first time. Besides, her body was much softer now, unlike the previous few times when her entire body was stretched taut like a tree stump. Now her body was still a little stiff. Experienced people could see that Yi Ro was a little nervous, but Fang Yan wouldn't care about it at this time. All of this was because he was also very nervous. Men were not easily satisfied. He kissed Yi Ro's lips and then began to grope her breasts. Fang Yan always wanted to do this before, but he didn't dare to. He was afraid of being beaten. Today was the best time and the best time. He was in another city, not in the Swallow Fort where people were constantly monitored and suppressed. After shopping for a day, he went to the police station, bought a lot of clothes, took a bath, drank good tea, and smelled good fragrance. The room was elegantly decorated, very stylish and romantic. On this starless and moonless night, Fang Yen felt it was time for him to become a diligent man and start to kill monsters and level up. This was something he had never done before. He was also going to climb to a new height, a new world that he had coveted for a long time. It was said that men were born with an abnormal attachment to women's breasts because the first mouthful of food they ate came from them. A woman's breasts were children's tableware, but most of the time, they were men's toys. They could play with them for a lifetime without getting tired. Yi Ro was thin, but her breasts were round and plump. Unlike those giant breasts that were on the verge of collapse as if two rabbits were stuffed into their clothes, they were firm and well-proportioned. They were neither too big nor too small, which complemented her appearance and temperament. Fang Yen wanted to touch Yi Ro's breasts. Of course, it was a little rude to say so. However, this was the thought that men would have when they saw the goddess they loved. For many people, they would be happy to accept even if she was a little ugly and had a little bigger breasts. Fang Yen straightened his back and slightly distanced himself from Yi Ro's body. Yi Ro opened her closed eyes slightly as if she had realized something. She closed her eyes again and took the initiative to stick her body to Fang Yen's chest. Yi Ro began to resist, although her way of resistance was unusually gentle. Resistance is a normal reaction. Fang Yen encouraged himself in his heart. It's not that she doesn't like you, but she hasn't gotten used to being touched by you. She's just shy. When Fang Yen thought of this, he distanced himself from Yi Ro's body again. However, Yi Ro quickly stuck her chest to Fang Yan's chest again. Their bodies were so tightly pressed that nothing could get through. Fang Yen secretly felt sorry for his right hand. He thought, "Brother Right, I'm sorry that you've been wronged. Your treatment is far worse than my chest." Therefore, Fang Yen suddenly pressed Yi Ro under the sofa with all his strength. Fang Yan's body was on top of Yi Ro's. He greedily kissed her and reached out to catch the softness. As soon as he touched it, Yi Ro opened her eyes and stared at Fang Yen without blinking. Fang Yen touched it, but Yi Ro didn't hit him. Fang Yen touched it again, but Yi Ro still didn't hit him. Fang Yen grabbed the softness and touched it several times, but Yi Ro still didn't hit him. Fang Yen thought for a while and discussed with Yi Ro in a low voice, "Can you close your eyes? Or, I'll cover your eyes with something. I'm very nervous when you look at me like this. I feel like you'll punch me away at any time. I want to take a shower first." Yi Ro bit her thin lips and said in an almost inaudible voice. "Oh my God." Fang Yen blushed after hearing that. His heart raced, his body went limp, and his arms became weak. He almost fell heavily on Yi Ro. "Did you guys hear what she said? She said she wanted to take a shower first. She actually said she wanted to take a shower first." Fang Yen was so excited that the muscles on his face twitched. What will happen after taking a shower? Although Fang Yen is still a virgin, he's not an idiot. Isn't that what we all know? Of course, Fang Yen had the demeanor of a general. He couldn't be too obvious, or women would think he was too lascivious. He also couldn't be too flustered, or women would think he was too frivolous. He had to be elegant and calm. He had to show that he often got a room with women and that he was familiar with this kind of thing. Oh, no, he couldn't show the last one. Fang Yen climbed up from Yi Ro's body and pulled Yi Ro up as well. He looked at her pretty face tenderly and said in a low and magnetic voice, "Wait a minute, I'll go get the water for you." Fang Yen thought it was best to take a couple's bath first. Because he suddenly remembered that he had never taken a couple's bath with someone, but he often took a bath with a man. When he was young, he would jump into the Stone River with Zhu Zaidan and Li Xiaotian from time to time. Especially in the summer, he would soak in the Stone River for a while almost every day. He also took a bath with Fang Yingying and Fang Haohan. Thinking of their figures, Fang Yen didn't want to think about it anymore. He was very satisfied with this point. He was not only a flirting man, but also king straight man. In this era where gay sex was the norm and men hooked up with men, it was really rare that the person he liked was a woman. Fang Yan stood up and walked toward the bathroom. He turned on the boiling hot water and carefully rinsed the bathtub twice. Then he drained the dirty water and began to put in warm water for a bath. He tested the temperature and poured the bottle of essential oil into the bathtub. "It's done," Fang Yan shouted. He walked toward the living room and said as he walked, "You can take a bath now." There was no one in the living room. Yi Ro was nowhere to be found. Obviously, Yi Ro had sneaked away when Fang Yan was busy turning on the water in the bathtub. There was a note on the table with a few beautiful words written on it. "I said go back to your room to take a bath." Fang Yan stood there in a daze. He had the urge to slap himself. He hadn't completely recovered from the blow until he took off his clothes and soaked his whole body in the bathtub. He felt that he was too inexperienced. How could he run to turn on the water at such a critical moment? Why should I turn on the water to take a bath? He asked himself over and over again in his heart. I'm not dirty, and I won't dislike Yi Ro for being dirty. No wonder there are long scenes of women taking a bath after sex on TV and movies. It's because men won't let them take a bath before sex. Chapter 734. When they met in the restaurant the next morning, everyone looked at Fang Yan with strange eyes. Only Fang Yan knew that he was no different from yesterday. The ugly virginity hat was still on his head. Yi Ro didn't like shopping, but she liked to go shopping with Fang Yan. In other words, as long as she was with Fang Yan, she was willing to do anything. Even if they didn't do anything, it was a sweet joy to just look at each other quietly. Yi Ro knew how to drive, so she drove Fang Yan's refurbished and painted antique Hongqi car back to Swallow Dock. Yezi had to stay in Yanjing to study, and there was still more than a month before the final exam. Before that, she couldn't skip classes and run to Swallow Dock. The Yi family attached great importance to studies and the education of their children. Yi Daoling wouldn't allow his baby daughter to be mediocre in both literature and martial arts and could only rely on him to make a living. Of course, such things were not uncommon among the powerful. Fang Yan didn't go back with Yi Ro because he had other things to do in Yanjing. When he was having breakfast with Yi Ro and Yezi, he received a call from Zhang Jianjun. He asked about Fang Yan's whereabouts and said that a car would pick him up later. Fang Yan said the name of the elegant place, and Zhang Jianjun said with a smile that he knew where it was. He asked Fang Yan to wait in the club and a car would pick him up later. It wasn't until the afternoon that Fang Yan's phone rang again. It was a woman named Qing Miao who called. She said that she was ordered to pick up Fang Yan to the headquarters. Where is the headquarters? Fang Yan asked aloud. You'll know when you get there. Qing Miao was very tight-lipped, and her tone was very impatient. She said, the car is waiting for you at the entrance of the club. She said the car, not she. It seemed that there was a hidden hostility to Fang Yan in her words. This made Fang Yan a little puzzled. When did he offend this bird? Puzzled, Fang Yan still walked toward the entrance of the club. This was an appointment with Zhang Jianjun, and behind Zhang Jianjun stood the old man. Therefore, he could only comfort his slightly restless heart with the words, the king of hell is easy to see, but the little devil is difficult to deal with. After all, even the old man had praised him, so why should he care about other people's attitudes? Swallow Dock had things they had to do. This was a tradition that had lasted for thousands of years. Why would he need to look at anyone's face? Fang Yan arrived at the parking lot in front of the clubhouse. A woman in black tights was leaning against the car and smoking. She had thick eyebrows, short hair, an oval face, and exquisite facial features. She could be considered a unique beauty. Seeing Fang Yan coming over, he didn't ask Fang Yan's name. He pinched the cigarette butt in his hand and said, let's go. After that, he opened the door of the passenger seat and jumped in. Fang Yen noticed a detail. She used 2 fingers to put out the burning cigarette butt and brought it directly to the car. She didn't have the habit of throwing cigarette butts around. This made Fang Yen have a slight favorable impression of her. There was a driver in the front and someone in the passenger seat, so Fang Yen opened the back door of the Buick and sat in. The driver started the car and rushed toward the Yanjing city. Because Fang Yen wanted to know where their headquarters was, he paid attention to the scenery outside along the way. He wanted to see if it was a place he was familiar with or a road he had walked before. The woman called Qing Miao also looked at Fang Yen through the rearview mirror from time to time, but she didn't stop Fang Yan's behavior. Obviously, she also knew that this kind of thing didn't need to be kept secret from Fang Yen. The car drove to the center of Yanjing City and finally drove to the entrance of a small island. Facing the heavily guarded gate, Qing Miao opened the window and handed over a black card. The person inside the gate swiped the black card on the computer, and a huge Longtu case immediately appeared on the computer screen. The guards immediately raised their hands to salute and respectfully returned the black card. They didn't even check the car to see if there were any suspicious people or suspicious items. Fang Yen sat quietly and didn't say a word, guessing the organization and identity of Qing Miao. The river bank and the central island were connected by a bridge. The car quickly rushed across the bridge, but it didn't enter the main gate. Instead, it went to a deeper area on the right. They passed through 2 more checkpoints, and each time, the green bird simply handed over the black card, and they were allowed to pass. The car stopped in a small parking lot, and Qing Miao opened the door and got out. She didn't talk to Fang Yen, but just looked at Fang Yen with indifferent eyes outside the window. Fang Yen knew that he needed to get out of the car as well. Sure enough, as soon as he got out of the car, Qing Miao led the way in front without saying a word. The driver didn't follow them, but drove the car away quickly. After passing through another stone archway, what entered his eyes was a series of small courtyards that were arranged in a picturesque disorder but not closely packed together. Fang Yen understood what this place was. The Mystery Department. He had long heard of the Mystery Department, and knew that it was a special organization within the Red Wall that specialized in the security of the country's leader. It was also an extremely hidden organization. These people were secretly responsible for the security of the country's leader, and also dealt with some powerful and destructive enemies and very difficult matters for the country. There were many talented people in the Mystery Department, and there were many experts. He had once imagined what the Mystery Department would look like, but he didn't expect the headquarters of this organization to be openly exposed under the sun, in the bushes. Of course, it was in the bushes under the sunlight of the Red Wall. Fang Yen carefully looked at the small buildings, thinking about what kind of people lived in these small buildings. Of course, what he was most concerned about was where Dragon God was. Logically speaking, the people of the outside world didn't know what kind of experts were in the Mystery Department. However, because the Fang family paid extreme attention to Dragon God, and Dragon God's reputation was too great. Therefore, not only the Fang family, but other people in the Jianghu also knew that Dragon God had entered the Red Wall. It was just like how they knew that Azure Dragon had fallen in battle, and that Black Dragon had appeared and disappeared mysteriously. Qing Miao, who was walking in front, clearly felt the change in Fang Yan's mood. She turned around and looked at Fang Yan, and shouted, "Don't look around." Fang Yan grinned and said, "I want to see, what can you do?" Despicable person. Qing Miao's eyes were filled with killing intent as she said coldly, "What's your relationship with Bai Xiu?" Fang Yan asked with a smile. "You." Surprise flashed in Qing Miao's eyes. She didn't know where she had exposed a flaw that would actually make this guy connect her with Bai Xiu. "Let me guess." Fang Yan's mouth had a hint of ridicule as he said, "Bai Xiu has entered the Red Wall before, and may even have carried out some difficult missions for the Mystery Department as an assessment. Perhaps you are Bai Xiu's partner in a mission. You, a woman, have not seen much of the world, and have not come into contact with truly outstanding men. Naturally, you will be deceived by Bai Xiu, a pretty boy who is good at scheming. You like him, and even love him. But, this is the mystery department. You can only temporarily suppress your feelings in the bottom of your heart, thinking that one day you and Bai Xiu will have the chance to be together. As long as you can have more opportunities to be together, as long as he can obtain the position that he once could. Unexpectedly, Bai Xiu was killed by my sword. So, you hate me. Is that so? Qing Miao took a deep breath. Her eyes were cold, and her face was gloomy. She said in a low voice, "You think too much. I know Bai Xiu, but he is only my comrade." "Is that really so?" Fang Yan sneered, and said, "I can feel the frequency of your heartbeat. I can even hear the change of your qi when you take a deep breath. Bai Xiu is your Achilles heel, right? I don't know what you're talking about. You should already know what Bai Xiu has done. Even the people above won't tolerate him." Fang Yan looked at Qing Miao with a smile, and suddenly raised his voice, and said, "If you don't want your feelings to be known by everyone, then you better respect me a little. You're slandering me, you don't have any evidence. What evidence do I need?" Fang Yan said disdainfully. "Gongsun Qi and I are friends of life and death. If I tell him that you like Bai Xiu, do you think he will tell everyone?" Qing Miao's expression changed dramatically. She did not expect Fang Yan to be so despicable and shameless, and be able to use any means. She did not expect that Fang Yan actually knew Gongsun Qi, and that the two of them were friends of life and death. No. Qing Miao's thoughts instantly became clear. Because Fang Yan suddenly mentioned Bai Xiu and guessed her love for Bai Xiu, she was caught off guard. However, she was a member of the mystery department after all, and had the experience of carrying out many missions. Whether it was IQ or experience, she was not bad, and her mental reaction was also much stronger than ordinary people. It was just a moment of confusion, and then she returned to her normal level. She looked at Fang Yan with gritted teeth, and was almost deceived by this disgusting hooligan. "Fang Yan, don't try to trick me. Don't underestimate the Azure Dragon. You were injured by Mr. Dragon God, and your Fang family and the Dragon God bloodline have a death feud. Gongsun Qi is Mr. Dragon God's beloved disciple. How could he be your life and death brother?" Fang Yan shrugged indifferently, and said, "You're right, Gongsun Qi apologized to me and wanted my forgiveness, but I rejected him. It doesn't matter if he's not qualified to be my life and death brother. Your feelings for Bai Xiu are a fact, and you might even have some secret collusion. As long as I tell this to everyone I see, who do you think they will believe? I don't believe that when you two met back then, you were not noticed by someone with ulterior motives." Qing Miao's expression changed many times, and after a long time, she suppressed the hostility in her heart and asked, "What do you want? Answer me a question." "What question?" "Which courtyard does the Dragon God live in?" Qing Miao was shocked, and said, "You want to challenge Mr. Dragon God?" "No." Fang Yan looked at Qing Miao as if she was an idiot and said, "We'll take a detour to avoid him." Chapter 735. The green bird knew that Fang Yan had a grudge with the divine dragon lineage. The divine dragon had been living among the people for decades, and the moment he entered the capital, he challenged Azure Dragon, who was at the pinnacle of martial arts, to not underestimate his enemy. He won in one battle, and during the battle, he severed Azure Dragon's tendons, causing his cultivation to be ruined. He became a cripple who treated alcohol as his life. With Azure Dragon's demise, the Fang family fell into dire straits. From the green bird's point of view, Fang Yan had 100,000 reasons to hate the divine dragon, but he also had 1,000,000 reasons to challenge the divine dragon. The divine dragon entering the Red Wall to become a consecrator of the mystic division was not a secret in the outside world. For Fang Yan to take the initiative to ask about the divine dragon yard's whereabouts, he naturally wanted to take the opportunity to challenge the divine dragon to avenge Azure Dragon and his family's humiliation. If not, how would he have the chance to meet the divine dragon himself? In Fang Yan's eyes, the green bird's question was really idiotic and ridiculous. "Please, do you think my intelligence is on the same level as yours?" Ignoring the responsibility and consequences of challenging a high-ranking consecrator within the Red Wall, just the risk of fighting the divine dragon alone was not something he could bear. It would be fine if he won, but if he lost, it was a question of whether he could survive. Even the old drunkard who had entered the heavenly Tao realm was not the divine dragon's match. His tendons had been severed by that perverted old thing. From this, it could be seen that the divine dragon was ruthless. He showed no mercy when it came to killing in battle. As the old saying went, it's never too late for a gentleman to take revenge. Fang Yen was a gentleman. Fang Yen was in no hurry. 50 years later, when he mastered his divine powers and entered the pinnacle of the heavenly Tao realm, he would definitely trample that old bastard into mush. If 50 years wasn't enough, then 60 years. If 60 years wasn't enough, then 70 years. Fang Yen was younger than the divine dragon, and there would be a day when the divine dragon would be reduced to mush. He firmly believed in this. Upon hearing Fang Yan's answer, the green bird looked at Fang Yen with even more contempt. She said, "I thought you were going to avenge your family in a fit of rage, but I never expected you to be a coward who only knows how to avoid and take detours." Fang Yen didn't care at all. He looked at the green bird indifferently and asked, "Can you defeat the divine dragon?" Mr. Dragon God has long entered the heavenly axiom realm, and his skills are profound. How could I possibly be Mr. Dragon God's opponent? Qing Miao was extremely respectful when she mentioned the Dragon God's name. On one hand, it was because of the Dragon God's ability. He held a high position in the Xian division and was indeed highly respected. In addition, because of the hatred between the Dragon God and Fang Yan's enemies were naturally her friends. Then why don't you challenge the Dragon God? The day you defeat the Dragon God will be the day you become famous. Green Bird sneered and said, "You still want to fight when you can't win? Do you think I'm an idiot?" Fang Yen nodded his head seriously, but repeated Qing Miao's words and said, "You still want to fight when you can't win? Do you think I'm an idiot? You." Qing Miao was furious and said, "I have no enmity with Mr. Dragon God, so I'm not in a hurry to challenge him. You have a deep hatred with the Dragon God. The elders in your family were hurt by the Dragon God. Now that you've met him, not only do you not seek revenge, but you're also afraid to move forward. For a man like you to exist in the Fang family, you deserve to fall." Fang Yen looked at Qing Miao with a smile and said, "You really want to see me challenge the Dragon God? That's your personal matter. What does it have to do with me? It's just that as a martial artist, I can't stand cowards." Fang Yen picked up a stone from the ground and threw it at Qing Miao. He said, "Do we have enmity now? Why don't you take revenge on me? Do you think I don't dare to kill you?" Qing Miao clenched her fists and her eyes were filled with murderous intent. Dust rose up from where her feet were standing and scattered in all directions. That was because she began to accumulate strength in her feet. She could rise from the ground and give Fang Yen a killing blow at any time. "Of course you don't dare," Fang Yen said with a smile. "If you dare to make a move, I'll shout that you're going to kill me. The fact that you're Bai Xiu's girlfriend will be known to the world." "Who's Bai Xiu's girlfriend?" Qing Miao's eyes were about to spit fire. She forcefully suppressed the hostility in her heart and shouted, "Fang Yen, don't slander me. You're angry?" A proud smile appeared on Fang Yan's face. He said, "Do you feel that the world is dangerous now? Do you know that you can't speak up now? Do you know what it feels like to be wronged?" Fang Yan's expression froze and he shouted angrily, "Bai Xiu killed my father and repeatedly set up traps to kill me. In the end, I used all my strength to kill him. How did I offend you? Is it because when he wants to kill me, I just lie there and let him kill me? Is that the only way to satisfy you? On what basis? It's all your words. Who would believe it? Who can testify?" Fang Yen was so angry that he laughed at this woman who had fallen in love. He said, "What does it have to do with me whether you believe it or not? Anyway, I've already killed Bai Xiu. Also, why should I prove anything to you? Who do you think you are?" Thus, she looked at Gong Sun Chi and said, "Gong Sun Chi, the young chief wants to see Fang Yen. I'll bring him over now." Gong Sun Chi stared at Fang Yen for a long time, and finally said, "I'll let you live for now." After saying this, his body suddenly became shorter. Only then did the clothes on his body start to flutter gently with the breeze, and the long hair on his head also danced in the wind. When he walked out of the dense forest, he came with the force of thunder. He indeed had the idea of killing Fang Yen with his palm. At that time, he was like a sword that had been unsheathed. In the cool breeze, his long hair didn't fly, and his clothes didn't flutter. His entire body was surrounded by the energy around his body, forming a transparent vacuum. It was hard to see with the naked eye, but Fang Yen and Qing Miao could feel its existence. Now that it had given up on the decision to make a move, its body and clothes returned to their natural state. "Look, you're also threatening me." Fang Yen sighed helplessly. "Do you know that anyone who threatens me doesn't have a good ending? When I first came to Huacheng, the school's director threatened me. Then, his son was sent to a labor camp. Then, Jiang Zhulu, one of the 4 prodigies of Huacheng, threatened me, and now he's in prison. Jiang Junling also threatened me. He was chased out of the Jiang family and became a wandering ghost. Now, you're also threatening me. To be honest, I'm looking forward to your ending. Tell me, how do you want to die?" Fang Yen. Gong Sun Chi's clothes straightened up again, and the hair on his head froze again. His palm glowed with a red light, and he could unleash a powerful palm knife at any time. He hated Fang Yen to the core. He hated Fang Yan's stinky mouth to the core. "I'm here," Fang Yen replied softly. "Are you blind?" Gong Sun Chi. Qing Miao hurriedly stood between the two of them. Fang Yen, that idiot, didn't care, but he had to consider the consequences of the battle between the two of them. "The young chief wants to see Fang Yen, I'm going to take him there immediately." Gong Sun Chi's eyes shone brightly, and he didn't hide his ability realm. He thought for a long time, and could only reduce the force again. He stared coldly at Fang Yen, and said, "Today, I'll let you win with your words, but someday, I'll cut off your tongue to go with wine. Look, you're threatening me again." "If I were you, I'd quickly shout, 'Auspicious Emperor.'" Gong Sun Chi snorted coldly, turned around, and walked toward a small courtyard on the side. Fang Yen looked at his tall and straight back, and sighed softly in his heart. When would he be able to draw his sword and cut off the dragon god's head, the little dragon god Gong Sun Chi's head, Jiang Junling's head, and Song Zanyang's head and little Dick? Others could draw their swords in anger, but he could only be a lowly person in anger. It was just a battle of words. Even if he won, what was the point? What would he gain? Fang Yen thought about it seriously. At least he was happy in his heart. Well, as long as he was happy, it was worth it. Fang Yen thought in his heart. Qing Miao glanced at Fang Yen, and once again led the way in front. When Fang Yen was about to leave behind her, a clear voice rang out. "Old friend, I'm here to visit. How can I not see you?" Chapter 736. "Old friend, I'm here to visit. How can I not see you?" His voice was clear and bright, and it didn't have any oppressive might or ruthless aura. It was calm and upright, and it was like a benevolent senior that saw a nephew he liked and issued a sincere invitation. The voice was clear, but he could not see who the speaker was or where he was. It traveled through space and time, but it still felt like it was right in front of him. Green Bird was shocked and stopped in her tracks. She whispered, "It's Senior Dragon God." Without needing Green Bird's reminder, Fang Yen had already confirmed the identity of the speaker. He had never seen the Dragon God before, let alone heard a word or two from him. However, he was very sure that this person was the Dragon God. It was like an epiphany of telepathy, or a long-awaited godhood. Dragon God. The immortal Dragon God had a tough life. Fang Yan's mouth was full of bitterness. Had he alarmed this old monster? Did he want to cut off his path of progress? Could it be that he dared to cut him down in front of everyone? Hearing the dragon god's voice, Green Bird looked at Fang Yen with a mocking gaze. She smiled and said, Mr. Dragon God invited you to see him. Do you dare to see him? He didn't invite me. Fang Yen said. I don't have any elders who are his old friends. After Fang Yen finished speaking, he strode forward. Oh, he started running. Coward. Green Bird sneered. The dragon god suddenly spoke. Fang Yen and Green Bird were not the only ones who were shocked. Gong Sun Chi, who was walking towards the courtyard, also heard the voice. He turned to look at Fang Yan's distant back and shouted, In this world, there are only a few people who can be called an old friend by master. Green Dragon Don't Underestimate Enemy is one of them. Fang Yan, the old friend junior that master mentioned is you. I must not decline an elder's invitation. Green Dragon Don't Underestimate Enemy and your master have no relationship. I only have a deep-rooted hatred and the belief to defeat him. Fang Yen retorted as he ran. You little brat. The dragon god's voice came again. No matter how far Fang Yen walked, that voice would always follow him like a shadow, as if it was right beside his ear. Azure Dragon, Mo Underestimate is a heroic and outstanding genius. Even though you were defeated by me, you are still worthy of admiration. You don't even have the courage to see me, so how can you talk about revitalizing the Fang clan? How can you take revenge for Mo Underestimate? Screech. Fang Yen lifted his foot and gently put it down. He stood there thinking for a moment, then turned around and walked back step by step. He walked slowly, as if each step was difficult. However, his footsteps were smooth and did not slow down at all. Since he had already made his decision, there was nothing to regret. Not hesitating to fight. Not hesitating to die. Are you really going? This time, Green Bird couldn't understand Fang Yen. He had already run so far away, so why bother coming back? After all, the dragon god was not Gong Sun Chi. If Gong Sun Chi wanted to make a move on him, he could still stand in the middle and use the young chief to suppress him. However, if the dragon god made a move on him, who would dare to stop him? If he killed him with one slap, then even if the young chief had complaints, he probably wouldn't be able to say much, right? Fang Yen ignored Green Bird and walked straight to Gong Sun Chi, saying, Lead the way. Gong Sun Chi looked at Fang Yen thoughtfully, thought for a moment, and said, If I were you, I would pretend not to hear it. As he spoke, he turned and walked towards the small courtyard. Fang Yan's expression was solemn as he followed behind Gong Sun Chi. Gong Sun Chi stopped at the door of a small courtyard, reached out and knocked on the door, saying, Master, Fang Yen is here. Come in. The dragon god said aloud. Creak. Gong Sun Chi pushed the door open and entered. Fang Yen also lifted his foot and stepped into the small courtyard. Under the eaves of the courtyard's corridor, there was a round stone table. Beside the table were two oval stone chairs, and on one of the stone chairs sat a man in a black robe. The man's face was thin, his eyes were long and narrow, and his skin was white and smooth. He looked somewhat feminine. However, the light in his eyes was restrained, and his hair was black and shiny. When he smiled, the wind blew, and when he did not smile, he exuded power. His eyes were slightly sunken, and his lips were thin and cold. One look and one would think that this person was a sinister and ruthless person. At least, that was what Fang Yen thought. In his hand was a teacup, and he was tasting the Wudong Mountain vanilla tea that he had just brewed. Master. Gong Sun Chi walked to stand behind his master, and then did not say a word. Fang Yen stood in the middle of the courtyard, sizing up the middle-aged man who was drinking tea. This man was one of the three dragons of Huaxia, the dragon god Tu Ming. He was the one who soared to the sky and knocked Mo Qingdi down from his pedestal. Even in the process of the battle, he did not hesitate to use a killing move and cut off the tendons of Mo Qingdi's hand, causing the azure dragon Mo Qingdi to become a cripple. In order to restore his pulse, he had no choice but to travel to the extremely cold lands to find the ice dragon. Old drunkard. Fang Yen called softly in his heart. At this moment, he was not afraid of the dragon god sitting in front of him. But, he really missed the old drunkard who was far away in the foreign lands. They were his elder brother and master, and they were like his father to him. How was he now? Was he still alive? Fang Yen made up his mind. No matter what, he had to make a trip to the extremely cold lands. He had to bring the old drunkard back. No matter if he brought back a living person or a corpse, he had to bring him back to Swallow Dock, back to the Fang family. That was his home. Bulsh *T, return home in glory or be buried in the snow country. Such words could be said casually, who would actually take them seriously? Even if he did not find the ice dragon, even if he could not restore his pulse, Enchanting was still the hero in Fang Yan's heart. The dragon god gently blew on the leaves in the teacup, blowing away the tea leaves, and then gently took a sip. He blew again, and then took another sip. After 3 consecutive sips, the cup of fragrant tea was finished, and he put down the teacup in his hand. The dragon god looked at Fang Yen, who was in a state of deep thought, and asked aloud, "You two must have a good relationship, right?" Only then did Fang Yen recover from his thoughts of Enchanting. He looked at the dragon god with a fierce gaze, and said, "Very good. Then you have a reason to hate me." The dragon god said. Fang Yen grinned, and said, "You're telling the truth." "But, so what?" The dragon god said bitterly. Enchanting's meridians have been broken, and his cultivation has gone down the drain. I heard that the Fang family has a son, Fang Yen, who comprehended the heart of Tai Chi at a young age. He also sailed against the current, and obtained the blessing of the light of Tai Chi that is rarely seen in 100 years. After a pause, the dragon god said bitterly, "What a pity. The heart of Tai Chi has become a stillborn fetus. There is no wind, no force, and the martial art does not advance. Fang Yen, how are you going to take revenge?" In order to save Yi Ro's life, Fang Yen used the mountain-moving technique to move the volcano into his body. After suffering such a heavy setback, Fang Yan's heart of Tai Chi became silent, and once again became a stillborn fetus. Fang Yan's physical state could not be hidden from a master like the dragon god, who could see his current cultivation level at a glance. Fang Yan grinned, and said, "Will you kill me now?" "Of course not." The dragon god said with a smile. "How can you kill people at will in this red-walled courtyard? You see, you can't kill me now, so I can still leave your courtyard safely." Fang Yen said with a smile. "As long as you give me one more chance, I will have one more chance to kill you. Fang Yen, if you want to challenge my master, then defeat me first." Gong Sun Chi said fiercely. What kind of person was his master? Even a junior like Fang Yen dared to say that he would have one more chance to kill him. Did he think he was invisible? Fang Yen waved his hand, and said to Gong Sun Chi, "My opponent is your master, you are not qualified." Fang Yen. Gong Sun Chi was furious, and he struck with his palm. Pa! A ginkgo tree next to Fang Yen suddenly collapsed, its branches and leaves flew, and the trunk burst, as if it had been hit by a heavy object. Fang Yen stood where he was without moving. He did not dodge, and he did not even show fear in his eyes. He looked at the dragon god with a calm expression, and said, "You see, you still don't dare to kill me. As long as I am alive, there is still a chance." Fang Yen. Gong Sun Chi wanted to strike again. All right. The dragon god looked at his disciple with difficulty, and said with a smile, "Can you really kill him here?" "Master, he has gone too far, I have to teach him a lesson." "Don't talk about it if you can do it, but do it if you say you will," the dragon god admonished. Gong Sun Chi responded, and stared at Fang Yen fiercely, but did not say anything else. Master was right, he would not talk about it. When he had beaten Fang Yen to the ground and broken his arms and legs, then he would tell him that this was the consequence of offending him. The dragon god's gaze was on Fang Yan, and he said, "Is it good to underestimate the enemy? Whether he is good or not, you should know better than me, right?" Fang Yan said coldly. This kind of person was really hateful. When he broke the tendons in your arms and made you a useless person, he asked you with concern, asking you how have you been recently? This was not concern, this was a stab in the back. When one is at the peak, he seeks defeat alone. It is hard to find a friend in life, and it is also hard to find an opponent. Underestimate the enemy is able to be my enemy, and it is also my friend in life. The dragon god sighed and said, "I heard that he went to the land of extreme coldness to find an ice dragon to reconnect his meridians. If he really found such a magical item, underestimate the enemy will be able to return to the peak, and I will have a close friend that I can spar with and travel the heavenly axiom with. To me, traveling with him is also a great joy in life." Fang Yan laughed and said, "I only know that the dragon god has a high cultivation base, but I didn't expect you to be so thick-skinned. We are both walking the same path, and as a junior, I really want to know, is your shamelessness innate, or is it self-taught? Can you teach us juniors some lessons?" Impudent. Chapter 737. According to the ranking of the inner pugilistic world, Divine Dragon, who had long entered the heavenly Tao realm, could be considered a grandmaster of his generation. Although Fang Yan was young and talented with extraordinary achievements, he could only be considered a rookie in front of a peerless expert like Divine Dragon. A junior repeatedly ridiculing and belittling his seniors. This was not acceptable in any place. Gong Sun Chi was anxious to protect his master. After shouting, "Impudent," he leaped up and punched at Fang Yan. "Come back," Divine Dragon called out. Gong Sun Chi attacked with all his might and was extremely fast. Just as his fist was about to hit Fang Yan's chest, he heard his master shout for him to go back. His master's orders could not be disobeyed. He could still change his moves when he had used up all his strength. Boom! The fist passed by Fang Yan's face and hit the air with great force. A strong gust of wind slammed into Fang Yan's face. Gong Sun Chi's body flew backward in the air and landed lightly on the ground. He once again stood behind Divine Dragon. His face did not turn red nor did his heart skip a beat. It was as if nothing had happened. Fang Yan looked at him coldly, but he felt a tinge of regret. "Master, how can you let this kid be so arrogant in front of you?" Gong Sun Chi asked indignantly. Divine Dragon smiled faintly and looked at Fang Yan. "Do you know that you've been played by this kid?" "I don't know. I just want to help Master vent his anger." Gong Sun Chi looked at Fang Yan with a murderous look. He was already unhappy with this person and disliked his craziness. The last time they met, he wanted to beat him up. If not for his lack of money, how could he have allowed him to be so arrogant? Now that he had repeatedly attacked and insulted his master, as his disciple, he naturally had to step forward to relieve his master's boredom. "You idiot!" Divine Dragon chuckled and said, "What is this place? How can you attack others as you please?" His provocation time and time again was nothing more than to provoke us, master and disciple, to take action against him, causing dissatisfaction within the Xian division and some of the higher-ups. I invited a guest, but injured him. Is this how I treat a guest? What's more, this person was personally summoned by the young chief. Forgetting official duties for personal reasons was a huge crime. Besides, what do others think of me? Where do you think Master is? He was the one who started it, Gong Sun Chi said indignantly. Who would believe a single statement? Green Bird can testify. The Divine Dragon shook his head and looked at Fang Yan, saying, "Within the red wall, it is supposed to be quiet and peaceful, there should be no weapons. You managed to provoke Gong Sun Chi's anger with just a few words, you are rather quick-witted. However, have you ever thought that if I was the one who attacked just now, I'm afraid you would have lost your life with a single punch? Even if your backup plan is exquisite, so what? Since his thoughts had been seen through, Fang Yen no longer played dumb and said, "Let's not talk about whether or not I can take a punch from the divine dragon. Even if I can't, I will just die. I am one of the best of the younger generation in Swallow Dock. Master just brought me to see the old chief and recommended me to be the new master of Swallow Dock. Now, when I am working hard for the country, I was killed and injured by you, master and disciple, because of your selfish thoughts. What does the old chief think of you? What does the young chief think of you? Also, although Swallow Dock doesn't have any heavenly path masters for the time being, they have many heroes. They probably won't allow their own family members to be bullied for no reason, right? The heroes of Swallow Dock didn't die in the hands of external enemies, but died in the hands of you, master and disciple. How will the country give Swallow Dock an explanation? Are you here to ruin my reputation? I don't know if you have a good reputation," Fang Yen said. Hearing this, Gong Sun Chi wanted to raise his knife and cut someone again. He was proud and arrogant, and rarely took others seriously. But ever since he met this Fang Yen, why did he always have the urge to cut him with a knife every time he heard him say something? Fang Yen was indeed the most hateful person he had ever met in his life. Fang Yen ignored Gong Sun Chi's existence. He couldn't be bothered to argue with a brat. He looked at the divine dragon Tu Ming with a straight face and said, "I know I'm no match for you, and I've never thought of taking revenge for senior brother Mo Qingdi by cutting off one of your arms and one of your legs. However, I dare not forget this hatred. If senior brother Mo comes back, he will come and take your hands and feet. If senior brother Mo doesn't come back, I will come and take your hands and feet. I don't have to worry about the old master laughing at me when I say this in front of you." That was indeed what I was thinking. It is also the goal of my life. I also know that you hate both of us, although I do not know where this hatred comes from. After all, during the sparring match, it was you who ruthlessly severed Mo Qingdi's meridians and destroyed his cultivation. This is even more hateful and unacceptable than killing someone with a sword. You invited me to meet you in the courtyard, but my heart refused and I was afraid. Because I was worried that you would kill me without a second thought. But I still came in. I'm not doing this for my own reputation, but for Azure Dragon Mo Qingdi's reputation. I don't want others to say that Mo Qingdi has a cowardly junior brother who doesn't even have the courage to meet his senior brother's mortal enemy. And I don't want to hear this from your mouth. So I came in. I wanted to provoke you or your disciple Gong Sun Chi. I thought, as long as you and your disciple attack me, as long as I can escape from this courtyard, I will naturally have a way to ruin your reputation as a divine dragon. Of course, it doesn't matter even if I can't escape. If I am killed by you, I believe you will not be able to roam freely inside this red wall, right? There will always be people who will speak up for this, and there will always be people who will sympathize with an innocent dead person like me. This is the worst-case scenario. If this is the result, there is nothing I can't accept. I look forward to better things, but who asked my cultivation to not be as profound as yours? Reasonable and well-founded. The divine dragon's eyes lit up. He smiled and said, courageous and resourceful. And the rarest of all, affectionate and loyal. Qing Miao stood at the door, not daring to come in. Hearing the divine dragon's evaluation of Fang Yen, she opened her mouth wide in shock. The divine dragon looked kind and amiable, and did not have the slightest bit of arrogance when interacting with others. But everyone knew that his arrogance was hidden in his bones. He interacted with everyone, but he also looked down on everyone. But no one expected him to evaluate Fang Yen like this, using the word excellent 6 times to describe Fang Yan's excellence. This shameless hooligan, was he really that good? The muscles on Fang Yan's face twitched. He thought to himself, did I really use my talent to conquer this old man? Otherwise, why would he praise me so hard? I just want to live. I just want to live. Fang Yen said in a low voice. If you want to kill me, I can't stop you. I can only ask you for some small interest from my death. How is this considered courageous and resourceful? If I were a really smart person, when you invited me into the courtyard to meet, I would have run away." The divine dragon laughed and pointed at Fang Yen. "Running away is indeed the smartest choice. But, as you said, if I invited you but you didn't come in, wouldn't people laugh at Imo Xiaoti for having such a junior brother? That's why I came." Fang Yen said. "Now that we've met, if Elder Divine Dragon has nothing else to say, then I'll take my leave first. I don't dare to let the young chief wait too long. Have a cup of cold tea before you leave," the Divine Dragon said. "Otherwise, it's my fault for not treating my guest well." He took out a brand new teacup, lifted the teapot, and filled the cup with tea. Then, with a flick of his finger, the teacup flew behind Fang Yen. Fang Yen dodged sideways, and the teacup flew past him, but crashed into him from the front. Fang Yen no longer dodged. He calmed his mind, gathered his qi in his right hand, and reached out to catch the teacup. The teacup landed lightly in his hand, and there was nothing strange. Just as Fang Yen was about to finish the tea in one gulp, the teacup suddenly exploded. Bang! The tea splashed everywhere. Fang Yan's face was covered with tea, and a tea leaf was stuck on the bridge of his nose. Fang Yen turned around angrily, and stared at the divine dragon with a murderous look. This was a humiliation. Gong Sun Chi laughed, pointed at Fang Yan's embarrassed look, and said, "Fang Yan, Master only invited you to a cup of tea, why did you bite the teacup?" The divine dragon looked at Fang Yan suspiciously, and did not say a word, nor did he look proud. With his identity and status, this little trick couldn't increase his beauty. It was just a joke to test the waters. Fang Yan's face was dark, from red to purple, from purple to pale, and then back to its natural color. Fang Yan cupped his fists, and said calmly, "Thank you, Mr. Divine Dragon, for the tea, it's delicious." Fang Yan wiped the tea stain on his face and the tea leaf on the bridge of his nose, and strode toward the door of the small courtyard. The green bird bowed slightly to the divine dragon, and then quickly left with Fang Yan. For some reason, seeing Fang Yan's appearance after being bullied, she did not dare to mock him. The divine dragon looked at Fang Yan's back as he left, his fingers tapping on the table lightly, and did not speak for a long time. "Master, it's good to teach this arrogant boy a lesson, so that he knows his place," Gong Sun Chi called out. The divine dragon did not respond, and he did not send the guest off with tea to teach Fang Yan a lesson. He looked at the teacup in front of him, and asked, "Did the young chief also summon you to carry out a mission?" "Yes." Gong Sun Chi nodded. "I heard that he wants me to carry out a mission with Fang Yan, and I was thinking of refusing." The divine dragon sighed softly, and said, "This boy is extremely dangerous, far more dangerous than the green dragon. Do not underestimate him, and work with him at his peak, you must be careful." Gong Sun Chi was shocked. "You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.